Separated by the Salish Sea, connected by the Rio Graps in BC. This is the Cup Check Wrestling Podcast with Aaron Schultz and Corey Ace Trelaw.
Cup Check Wrestling 2, Electric Boogaloo. Just like WrestleMania 2, broadcasting from different locations. And hopefully will be remembered more endearingly than WrestleMania 2. Aaron Schultz, I'm in Kamloops, BC, here with Corey Ace Trelaw in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island, separated by the Salish Sea, connected by the Coquihalla Highway. Ace, how is it going today?
Pretty good. It's not quite as good as it might be in LA or New York, but Nanaimo is pretty good today. So, no complaints. Pretty good.
No complaints. I mean, I can't really see what the weather's like behind you, but I'm happy I can see you, and
of course,
hopefully
that's the moneymaker view.
Yep. Hopefully everyone can see us, I suppose. Because this is the first time our video should ideally be uploaded to our YouTube channel. We were in a situation last year. It's not your fault. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't your fault, though, Ace. What happened, I suppose?
So I thought it would be endearing playing my very first pay-per-view that I ever watched in the background. The YouTube gods did not. So we got a copyright strike. I should have known better. I will be better. But yeah, it was actually, all kidding aside, I thought it was funny because like it's not like, you're really gonna see it there. Who's watching for that? But I get it. It's not my content, so here we are.
Yeah, that's the thing, because as I was finishing uploading the content ID system that YouTube just has, they just immediately flagged it because I guess we were going over like the 15 seconds or whatever we were showing it. And I think we could have fought because we did mention Unforgiven. It could have been like, fair use. But they would have, to upload it the way it was, they would have had to go through the entire near 2-hour video, just blurring that little square throughout all your segments or the time that the camera would go to you. So it's like, it's not worth it. So here's our first time on video. So, instead, we got our sharp little logo on your TV screen behind you. That's great to see.
And you did your hair for us today, so it's perfect.
I didn't even do my hair. I had arm day at the gym just a few hours ago. I just showered and threw something on.
Flex, but okay.
Here's my 2-inch pythons, dude.
Attaboy.
Yeah, but
I like things away.
God, no. We're trying to attract viewers, not to tear them. But we got our logo in the background instead. It's sharp, and because generally we have always privately had this stance, publicly we might as well do it. And I want to really emphasize it because, well, YouTube's content ID kind of pissed me off a little bit. Ace and I, this podcast, we have a very firm stance of fuck AI. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, as a Raptor fan, I never liked him in the early 2000s. He was very a pivotal. No, I have, other than Allen Iverson, I'm very anti-AI myself personally. I do see, it's funny because for those who don't know, I am in university right now, so it's a big topic. It's the discourse that everybody wants to get into, and it's definitely a tool. In more ways than one. But I don't believe in the creation aspect of it, especially for stuff like logos. Like I was very big, even when we were doing the Cup Check logo that you see behind me, I didn't want to use generative AI for it. I can see it as a tool, and it's, I never want to be one of those old people that, is just afraid of what's new. And so I'm familiar with it. I know it's there. It's I won't say a necessary evil, but it's here whether we like it or not. And yeah, so I'm pretty careful about ways I'll use it. Like I remember I had a test last semester coming up, and I took all my notes, compiled it, and I was like, just quiz me. And that, I feel like in instances like that, it's something that, okay, cool, this could be something that's actually, but humans, we are made to create. We're not, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
pay
before I
just pay
ramble.
artists. Just pay artists, folks. I
Well,
mean,
and that's the other part of it, without going down the rabbit hole, is the fact that, now you can get companies, pump out a commercial. They don't have to pay a single soul. And yeah, so a lot of, yeah,
this looks
we joke a lot too, even as I remember at the beginning of the season, the Maple Leafs, I'm a big hockey fan. Uh, for those who don't know, they got a statue of their boards right in front of the arena, and they're these bronze, all the players, and excuse me. But they had used some AI for that, where you press a button and the legends come to life. And I loved how universally everybody just hated on it. It was
it was
so great.
critically panned.
Yeah, it was awesome. And yeah, I think art is for humans, and that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, because it just looks unappealing. It just looks like something's always off with it, not just like, oh, this hand all of a sudden has 7 fingers. But anytime I just see a generated AI image or just hear something that was generated by AI, I just want to disengage with it completely. So, as you mentioned, I'm happy that our logo,
It's harder. It gets harder and harder.
artist, it gets hard as it gets better and better. But you know what? We're meant to create, and like
Yeah.
even trying to create a logo, I understand if you're on a little bit of a lower budget. Like I'll use independent pro wrestling promotions, for example. Some will use generative AI to make a poster. No, open up Canva, open up Microsoft Paint, even open up Adobe Photoshop. You fall with style like the rest of us,
Yeah.
Make the worst edit ever as your poster. Like, if you've walked around in a big city, you surely have seen an independent pro wrestling promotions poster on it. It's got like this weird, bloody, barbed wire kind of lettering, and like you can still see the pixelated mistakes on some of the wrestlers you're trying to put in. No, that's the beauty of art. Like, you're just trying your best, and then you can see your progress evolve over years. So
Yeah.
don't escape from the grind. You try, and if you fail, have fun with it. I want to see, don't take away our shitty independent pro wrestling posters for us, and also create, and also pay artists. I don't know.
Lastly, too, now you got me on the rabbit hole. Shit art by a human will always be better than great art by a computer. That's kind of where I'm going to leave it, because I could spend another hour or two on this topic, and we got some wrestling to get to.
Yeah, we have an hour or two of just wrestling to talk about, and we were kind of talking earlier this week that there was nothing ever that like really required an emergency podcast, like a topic that we need 30, 60 minutes on right there and then. But there was just a lot. It was a busy, busy week. We'll touch on as much of it as we can. I think the only way we can go, we kind of left off last week, our inaugural episode, by trying to preview the Royal Rumble and see how the road to WrestleMania in April would go. At least now we have what looks to be the main event of night 2 of WrestleMania. Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble, and he'll be challenging CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship. I think we were both saying kind of felt like a big match last week, and after the two had their first promo battle on Monday Night Raw, it feels like a legit WrestleMania main event. Ace, how are you feeling about this now?
Yeah, it definitely has that big fight feel, where, when I think back to a lot, not to be that boomer living in the clouds now, but when I think back to those like big Mania matches when we were kids, I'm getting that feeling from this initial promo. And yeah, I don't know. I wasn't huge. I think I mentioned this on the podcast last week. I wasn't huge on Roman winning. I thought he was gonna.
I should have. I should have.
Lucky me, I was
an
right.
Apology to you. I should have apologized to you to lead this off. It's like, you were right. We know these guys too well. You knew these guys too well. They were gonna go the predictable route, and like there wasn't even a struggle. Roman just walked in, and I had in my notes, he just kind of won. There's like maybe a brief struggle, and he just won rather easily, and now he's in the main event.
Which I wasn't huge on. It was a little underwhelming, but whatever. I will say, though, after seeing this promo, it was definitely the right decision. I think these two working each other is going to be great. And I think, honestly, just, for both of them, like, Punk's obviously been, great on the stick for as long as we can remember. And seeing Roman grow too is into now what he's become. It's really cool. So like I said, I was a little disappointed in the Rumble, but I definitely thought they stuck the landing with the Raw promo for sure.
We'll get back onto like the promo and how it's going to look going forward. But as I was watching the Royal Rumble over this weekend, I watched it delayed. I tried to fast forward through as many advertisements as I could, try and not have too much Saudi propaganda thrown in my face. But I was thinking a decade ago.
Easier said than done.
You're telling me, buddy. So a decade ago, we talked about how we became friends going to the Galaxy Cinemas in Nanaimo for the monthly WWE pay-per-view. The last time we did that was a decade ago. It was the Royal Rumble. They went with the predictable route, but what really made me realize how much sometimes the way things change, sometimes they stay the same. AJ Styles is making his debut a decade ago, and now we're watching his retirement. And I was looking at Roman, and a decade ago, and it kind of ties into the CM Punk promo, or the promo with CM Punk, how Roman kind of alluded to the infamous podcast he had with Colt Cabana back in 2014, where CM Punk uttered that phrase, but you got to make Roman look really strong. And a decade ago, it was still that same path. We got to make Roman look really strong. We got to make him the next face of the company beyond John Cena. And I'm watching this. Gunther retires AJ Styles. We'll get to that in a little bit. But Gunther retires AJ Styles after retiring John Cena, after retiring Bill Goldberg. He gets eliminated to make Roman Reigns look really strong. And I just thought,
I didn't really think of it that way, but
yep. I guess so. Roman and Punk, they have the history, of course. I mean, not just going back a decade ago, but just like since CM Punk has come back. I mean, last year they were both part of that triple threat with Seth Rollins, which was the main event of night one of WrestleMania, where the story was, who is Paul Heyman going to side with? And then they've teamed up in War Games twice over the last 2 years, so they got some history. But I guess, where do you kind of think, like, how relevant do you think, like, a decade ago is to now? Because there was a story that CM Punk wanted to bring up the Shield, Dean Ambrose, now John Moxley, Seth Rollins. He wanted to bring up Chris Hero, also known as Cassius Ohno, but the move was
I
made.
was just about to ask you what was his NXT name again, because I couldn't remember. I knew it was KO, but yeah, Cassius Ohno. That's right.
Now we got Kevin Owens as the. I think that was the better KO for WWE.
Yeah, it turned out. Yeah,
turned out just fine. But Roman Reigns was put in the Shield instead of being with CM Punk. They were their own thing. So you see, I think for us now, we haven't been watching for. Well, we don't know, like, say, like we were talking about, like, okay, we weren't there for the 80s or the 90s, but we were watching for basically Roman Reigns' entire career. We saw how this all played out. I guess, how relevant do you think that information, that time from the 2010s where CM Punk mentioned, you gotta make Roman look really strong, and that podcast happened, but Roman kind of alerted to how that made things challenging for him. I'm kind of not really remembering it like that. How relevant do you think a decade ago is compared to now, or should they just focus on what has been taking place since CM Punk has come back?
Yeah, you know what's funny? I kind of have the opposite view on that, where when I first saw that, it, like, there's a big argument to be made that that was one of the reasons for the initial fan pushback. Um, I definitely think they stuck the landing with the tribal chief, or maybe you could argue fell ass backwards into it. Because they were struggling for years to make him the guy. And excuse me, it's funny that, like, that 2014 year, like, I do remember quite a bit of it, despite not, I was 19 at the time, so I wasn't watching quite as much historically as I had been, but like, he was still pretty over, like, I think we kind of knew, okay, he's going to be the guy. He's coming up, right? It's not quite as forced. And then even, after the initial Shield breakup, they were positioning him, like Ambrose and I almost said Ambrose and Mox. Ambrose and Rollins were both in the Money in the Bank that year. And then I remember Roman was in the championship one. So you could tell that they were saying, like, okay, this guy's going to be. And I don't think we were that against it. I mean, I remember him working Orton at SummerSlam. But yeah, there's a big argument that after that Punk podcast finally does drop, that's the flip. And it's tough because you could chalk a lot of that up to Daniel Bryan. You could
Mhm.
say it was dumb for WWE to put him in the Rumble if they didn't want him winning the Rumble, because you very easily could have just not announced him for the show, not said he's coming back and he's going to win the Rumble. You could have had him come out the next night and not told anybody. And the 2015 Rumble probably wouldn't have been taken as poorly as it was. And so I think it was kind of just the perfect shitstorm, to quote my hero Jim Leahy, of yeah, where they just, I don't know what they were thinking back then. Especially looking at it with hindsight now with Brian, it's nuts. And that Punk podcast kind of starts the turn on Roman. A lot of people go back to that 3-on-1 handicap match, and it's like, yeah, they did protect the shit out of Roman in that. And I
Yeah,
think it was an uphill battle ever since for him, the next
I
5 years.
I don't. You see, I might want to push back on that a little bit. The way I remembered it, I don't think it helped, mind you. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it really hurt. I couldn't have helped. I don't think that was the reason though. I mean, anytime like a podcast like that drops, like you get a bunch of new sound bites out of it. But you kind of alluded to after the Shield broke up, the most protected group over the last 2 years at that point, Roman never really had that conflict with Seth Rollins, who was the reason for the breakup of the group. He just went straight on to the main event scene,
Yep.
challenging for the WWE Championship in a ladder match and going face to face with Randy Orton. Roman also had a injury that kind of shelved him, and I think that kind of hurt his momentum throughout the fall
Right.
because he just kind of comes back and it's kind of being hinted that he's going to win. And Daniel Bryan coming back at the same time, he had just been as most over as he was in WWE the year prior. The Yes Movement, finally getting to be in the WWE Championship match in the main event of WrestleMania after months and months of pushback and the fans insisting on it, that WWE finally changed its mind. And so you had Daniel Bryan, he suffered a neck injury afterwards. He was going to be coming back. I think fans still want to see a good, long Daniel Bryan championship reign. And I want to say the fans not really getting behind Roman. I think it's mostly those reasons. And also, he's got the tribal chief character now, but for longest time, they just wanted Roman to be the new John Cena, and he just did not have that comedic effect, I suppose. He didn't have that delivery. He didn't have that charisma to be able to pull those lines off that way. And yeah, it was just took me by surprise that, he threw out the Colt Cabana podcast with CM Punk as a reason that it made things more difficult. I would want to push back on that. And then also, how many of these fans have come back since this new WWE boom period began? We remember it clear as day, but it was 12 years ago now. I don't know how many fans were even there for that or how many of them nowadays would even care, the ones who had recently come aboard.
I think it's one of those things though where, even the ones who might not remember it or don't know the context for it, um, I don't think it makes a difference. Like, I don't think that hurts the build. And then I think for guys like us who have, unfortunately been watching for the better part of 2 decades, I think for us it just adds that extra layer of excitement. And I'd have to double check, just thinking back to it now, with him being hurt at the time in late 2014, I'd have to double check if either the TLC return was before or after the podcast. I want to say after, because I kind of remember that podcast dropped and then that infamous promo where he like totally forgot his line and he just kind of like looks. I'm pretty sure that's after. So I think it was just this perfect storm of the podcast drops, you know, that they're like, okay, he's not ready. A guy like Brian comes in, they're like, okay, well, or comes back, I should say. We want him. I think it was just kind of this perfect blend of like, yeah, no, fuck you. We don't want this guy.
I forgot about the suffering succotash line.
Yeah. Oh, that was earlier in 2015 too. Yeah.
I think that
So
was before the Royal Rumble. It was on an episode of SmackDown. Granted, SmackDown at this time, like the brand splits over.
yeah,
It's very
no one's
much
really
the B
watching.
show. More of the B show that CM Punk and Roman Reigns say is SmackDown's now the B show. It was even more of a B show back then.
We'll
And
get to that too.
I have many such opinions about everything that transpired there. But yeah, that suffering succotash line, he says Seth Rollins is full of suffering succotash. And I think that just That's when the shark dropped to that. Pardon me. No, when I can hardly talk. I'm forgetting my lines just like Roman Reigns did back in the day. That's where it jumped the shark. That suffer and succotash line. Yeah. And so I think I did appreciate that they mentioned it. Hopefully a decade plus isn't like the basis of this feud. I like how Roman emphasized like, oh, CM Punk took my wise man. He took Paul Heyman, my manager. He was mocking me behind my back as we were walking back from War Games. I like that too, and I'm looking forward to how the next few weeks play out. Like, I don't think it was like Monday's promo. I don't think it was like the promo of a lifetime, but it felt real. They were getting more agitated as it went along, and I feel like they're going to get more agitated over the next 2 months. So I'm really looking forward to how that plays out. I'm happy we've got a legit WrestleMania main event to look forward to.
100%. It's been a minute that I've had a feud like where I think I'm this invested right off the hop. So I'm looking forward to it.
Opposite of what looks to be the other main event of WrestleMania. So we don't know for sure. I mean, right now, Drew McIntyre is still the WWE champion. He retained by defeating Sami Zayn at the Royal Rumble. There's an Elimination Chamber match set up for the next pay-per-view WWE has next month near the end of February. It seems like that they're hinting it's going to be Cody Rhodes challenging Drew McIntyre in the never-ending feud. Maybe Jacob Fatu gets in there. This just does not do it for me. I'll have my rant in a little bit. This doesn't do it for me. Ace, how are you feeling about this?
Yeah, it's tough because contrary to a lot of the discourse I saw with Friday's promo by Drew, I thought it was a pretty good response for how do I word this without I thought it was a pretty good response just in the context of kind of rallying the troops together where, he made some really good points. And I like Drew. I really like Drew. It's just the star level is just not there, unfortunately. And I mean, you could even make the argument like they could so have easily done that promo on Monday without mentioning Drew or Cody at all. They could have just said, I want to fight you because you slighted me and I've never liked you. And you could have left it at that. And it's tough because now I feel like the guys on SmackDown have an uphill battle because of that. That being said, Cody and Drew again is not it. Yeah. I don't know how else to say it. It's not it. I don't know exactly what they're gonna do. If Cody's gonna win the chamber, if I'll let you get. I've got kind of an hypothesis, but I'll let you get to your thoughts first to kind of glaze over that.
I appreciate it. And there's some spots you mentioned there that I need to touch on as well. And let me just preface it like, I don't want this podcast to be nothing but gotcha clips. I don't want this to be like, some ESPN shows. I don't want us to be like Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless just trying to get a clip, trying to get the viewers' attention. I don't want to be hyperbolic. That being said, this main event, good grief. So Drew McIntyre, not the person, like the performer and the person, Drew Galloway, big fan, looks like $1 million, works hard, can talk. As a professional, I am a big fan of Drew McIntyre. The character Drew McIntyre, in my opinion, without hyperbole, is the weakest WWE champion. Not talking about like any other belts that's like blue or red or the World Heavyweight Championship. The WWE champion, Drew McIntyre, right now is the weakest WWE champion. I would say going back to Jinder Mahal back in 2017, where Jinder at that, of course, Drew is more established than Jinder, but Jinder was a jobber. I think he maybe had like 2 wins in his career or something. He became the WWE champion at that point. Drew, over the last 5 years, his character is, in the biggest moments, he is a losing loser who does nothing but lose. As soon as crowds came back, because he was the WWE champion throughout most of the pandemic era when they had no fans in attendance, they were in the Performing Center, they were in the multiple Thunderdomes that they just set up in empty stadiums. As soon as fans got back, that WrestleMania in Tampa Bay in 2021, Drew lost to Bobby Lashley. 1 year later, Drew It's not his home country, but it's in Wales. It's in the United Kingdom. He's Scottish. He's challenging Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship, or maybe that was the no, I think that was the WWE Universal Championship at the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And Drew lost, and then he sang karaoke with Tyson Fury afterwards. And then you fast forward again. Even when he wins, he loses. He beat Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship 2 years ago at WrestleMania 40. And then Damian Priest cashed in moments afterwards. He cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase, and he lost the World Heavyweight Championship right there and then. And then throughout 2024, he was doing some of his best work. CM Punk was injured for half that year, but Drew McIntyre, with his promos alone, basically is carrying that feud. And he loses the feud, granted, in a fantastic climax at Hell in a Cell, or pardon me, Bad Blood, in a Hell in a Cell match with CM Punk. And then afterwards, he's going to be the Bloodline Hunter. That was early in 2025, and I'm not sure if Roman Reigns maybe had some talks backstage, like, nah, I don't want to do that, because you could tell on Monday's promo, there's no love lost between Roman and CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. And they just buried Drew 6 feet under, and they almost guaranteed that they're going to have that main event on night 2. And so Drew doesn't get his Bloodline Hunter gimmick, and then he loses the feud with Damian Priest. And so he's finally challenging for the WWE Championship again against Cody Rhodes, and he loses, and he loses, and he gets beaten and beaten. And then this feud's supposed to climax with a 3 stages of hell match. Jacob Fatu's interference causes Cody to not be able to respond to Drew, and Drew crawls out of the steel cage door, and that is how he's now the WWE champion. And the Royal Rumble, some folks are underwhelmed by this match. I really enjoyed the match with Sami Zayn at the Royal Rumble because, simple story, Sami goes for a dive, hurts his back, Drew works over the back, eventually wins clean. It sucks for Sami, but you know what? When you have a champion this week, you need to build him up. This is what you got to do. You got to give him clean, honest to God wins to build him up, to make him look like a credible champion. And then Roman Reigns and CM Punk just buried this guy 6 feet under the next night on Raw. And Drew's response, as the top heel, was to do a rah-rah promo. SmackDown's being disrespected. All the folks who have held this WWE championship who are better than me. This can't be the main event. It just can't. We've seen Cody and Drew over the last couple months. I understand the rumors were, it was supposed to be Cody and Roman at the main event of WrestleMania. We can't do it 3 times in 4 years. It's too repetitive. I don't believe that. I think deep down, Roman and Cody didn't want to lose to each other that year, so they pivoted. And now you got Drew McIntyre and Cody potentially, after they've had multiple matches since September, basically.
Yeah.
And Drew's a losing loser. I can't get on board with this. I just can't, Ace.
No, yeah, I do get that reception 100%. And again, like I even prefaced it with, they could have done anything but mention what they mentioned with Drew. But given what was said, I think that was the best response. Now, that being said, what I was gonna wait until, because I personally, I really wanted to hear your rant on that too. But what I was gonna say is I don't see Drew walking into Mania as champ. If I could put on the Booker cap for a sec, I imagine they'll probably do some shenanigans next week with the Cody Fatu Sammy qualifier match, where Drew's gonna make sure Sammy wins, goes in. I think they're gonna run a triple threat at the Chamber for the title, and I think Cody's just gonna win it back. Which is funny, because if the reports are to be believed, the whole reason that Drew won the title was because Cody thought it would be fresh, him going into Mania, challenging for the title. I don't know about that. I feel like this is all speculation, but I feel like if Cody and Punk are both world champion after the Rumble, I feel like Roman choosing Punk is looked at kind of like him running from the trilogy. So maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe there's nothing there, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was Cody's way of saying, hey, I don't know if I want to do the Roman match again, or if Roman's going to win and challenge Punk, Roman saying, "Well, I don't want Cody to be," who knows? I'm not here to speculate, but I would be interested to see a behind the curtain peek on the thought process. Because again, I love Drew. He really clutched up during the pandemic, and he is fantastic. It's just, yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there, where they don't really give you much of a reason to believe in the guy. So yes, I think come the Chamber, we'll see a triple threat. I see Cody winning it back, and then whoever wins the Chamber will likely challenge Cody. I feel in my gut that's probably where it's going. Um, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We will. And I can understand Cody's your top babyface. I understand sometimes the chase of winning a championship can be more entertaining than keeping the championship. But I'm just thinking there's got to be another way. Like, I know the match that I would really be most interested in would be Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu at this point.
I know.
Although, as much as I want Jacob Fatu now to be a new star, I think that his promo delivery ahead of the Saturday night's main event show in Montreal is fantastic. And Jacob just offers you something that just about everyone else on the roster can offer. But I do understand maybe wanting to avoid that match because I think in WrestleMania, Cody Rhodes would not be cheered against Jacob Fatu. I think the crowd would be mostly in favor of Jacob because I think over the last couple of years, especially, WWE fans have been trained that moments matter more than anything. Like the WrestleMania moment that folks will go, that influencers will be reacting to, like, oh my God. And all these headlines are written like the WrestleMania moment. I think that's like, in a lot of fans' eyes, more valuable than even being the champion. And I think Cody finished the story. He won in one of the greatest WrestleMania shows 2 years ago. He finished his story. And I think fans have already seen it. And Jacob would offer something new. So I think that Jacob would be.
What have you done for me lately?
Cody in that case? Yeah. So I'm thinking if you want Cody to chase, who can he chase? And I just don't think Drew McIntyre is it. I mean, if there's like another alternative, because I like your way of thinking, like find a way to get out of this main event. Just, I'm sure I don't know why we bother. I'm sure they're just going to go ahead with this.
Yeah, who knows?
If there's another alternative, just because they've been hinting it for probably like really since he came back from injury, like Randy Orton wanting to take the WWE Championship from Cody, why not just have Randy Orton be the champion? You know, finally pay off that feud after all these years. It's been ages. Smoke him if you got him. I think not that's the other story still into like just into being self-indulgent, taking forever. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's the other part of that side where you said they're kind of trained for the moment. Is now everything's got to be so drawn out, and it's like, we believe in. Not that I'm trying to do an impression, but we believe in Fatu. He's going to be big for us, and then by WrestleMania 47, he's winning the Rumble to like. I don't know. I this is from a couple of weeks ago now, but I even thought before this stuff with Punk and Roman, I really wanted Braun to win the belt at the beginning of the year, that Stranger Things Raw, where just something new. And unfortunately, and again, I love Drew. If that was their breath of fresh air, even Drew's already been champ a few times, it's fresh air is something new, like something that we haven't seen. And I'm really glad, at least for Drew's sake, that he is getting a chance to do a run with a championship in front of people, because he never really got that. That being said, I don't know if you should sacrifice your Mania season for it. And I feel bad saying that, because it's not like Drew's this awful, end of the world character, but I don't know, man. I don't feel as excited as I think I should. Yeah, it's not it. That's the best way to. I'm not as excited as I should be going into the Mania main event picture on SmackDown.
And maybe we're looking ahead another year of WrestleMania, because WrestleMania next year is going to be in Saudi Arabia. And so look at like the recent build with Sami Zayn, for example. So Sami's a Muslim man. They kind of said Saudi Arabia, in a sense, is like another home field for Sami Zayn. And of course, he loses the championship because, well, Sami, I think he said best that he said he can win the belt. He can never be the guy, because they will never view someone like Sami Zayn as someone who can be the guy, which is unfortunate. But I heard the speculation that next year in Saudi Arabia, Sami Zayn will win the WWE Championship. I'm just thinking 4 years. It would have been 4 years since the peak of Sami Zayn turning on Roman Reigns in the bloodline and the peak of his popularity. Yeah, I understand long-term storytelling. Sometimes it's just self-indulgence. Sometimes it's just you miss the peak. Sometimes you even like miss like you're not even at the peak. You're still like elevated, but since really outside of like maybe WrestleMania 40 where Sammy beat Gunther, there hasn't been like, and I guess like there's the tag team championships where Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were in the main event of night one of WrestleMania. They won the tag team championships, but outside of those two matches as I drop my pen here, outside of those two matches, like they've routinely beaten Sami Zayn. They've protected Kevin Owens more than Sami Zayn. I think they kind of trained the fans like, nope, this is just where Sammy is going to be. And I think it's just far too late at that point. He wasn't even on WrestleMania last year, Sammy. So, yeah, I think sometimes you just got to smoke him while you got him. Like, yeah, if you want to hold off by like a month or two, but we need some urgency. And I'm starting to get worried. You mentioned Braun Breaker, that it would be nice maybe if he became the world heavyweight champion. Apparently, according to reports in the Wrestling Observer, that he was tentatively scheduled to win the Royal Rumble, because at that point, the plan was still Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, and then Braun Breaker could have won the Royal Rumble and challenged CM Punk or whoever would be the world heavyweight champion at that point. Now, of course, Seth Rollins is coming back probably for WrestleMania. Braun Breaker was the first one eliminated in the Royal Rumble, and it feels like the wind's just been taken out of his sails, and I feel like, Braun's young. His time's coming. I do worry that eventually they're just going to make the fans lose interest, because you can extend it, but sometimes you just miss the peak. I don't know. What do you think about Braun Breaker right now? Are you excited for Seth? Do you think he still has momentum? I'm really curious for your take on that one.
Yeah, it'll be a good program. There's something there, but like I think what we'll need to see is sort of post Mania what they do with him. Um, I think, nobody would argue that Seth needs to win that one, but whoever wins or loses, I think it's the momentum they keep up with. What's the plan after Mania? Okay, are we looking at like the Money in the Bank? Are we looking at, maybe King of the Ring going into SummerSlam? Like what's the game plan? And unfortunately, if someone like Roman does win the belt and he's not around until next year at Mania a whole hell of a lot, is it just okay? Well, not to get too far off, but if Roman wins the title from Punk, let's say we have Braun win King of the Ring, and now he's challenging Roman at SummerSlam, and they have that great match that you said you get those big viral moments for it at main events night one or night two or whatever, and then Roman just beats him clean because he's going on to Mania and Saudi as champ. Again, what the fuck do you do with him after that? So I think it's where, or how I should say, how they execute whatever is after Seth, because they have to do Seth. It's sitting right there, but it's kind of, how they follow up post that program. And even going back to Sami Zayn, yeah, I don't know if anybody really thought he was going to be winning the world title at Rumble. I certainly didn't. But yeah, I don't see him touching a world title anytime. It's too bad because I like at its peak with the Elimination Chamber in Montreal, it was one of those things where it didn't make sense if for him to win it. Obviously, they were running with Cody, which is fuck, man. Like it was one of those things where it's just if it's so hot, just do it. Who
Mm-hmm.
you can book yourself out of it. Like in the worst case scenario, some people might complain about it. Sammy wins the title by some shenanigans. Next night on Raw, Solo spikes him and Roman wins it back, and you get your Mania. You know, I think it was one of those things. I guess it's tough in hindsight because again, now we've got the 1,316 days or whatever but yeah, that was one of those things where it was just like, man, you got to strike when the iron's hot there. And even going back, I remember you and I talked about this a couple of years ago when Cody lost the first match at 39, where I think it was a tweet or it it said something along the lines of like, could you imagine if in 2005 John Cena lost to JBL, and everybody came out saying like, oh well, we really need to build some sympathy behind John Cena, and really so that when 22 comes around, you're ready for him to take it to JBL. And it's like, no, just have him wipe the floor, drop a rap album, and the rest is history. Like, I don't know. I like a long-term vision. I don't like things just being thrown together, but sometimes you got to just say, okay, like look at, to a much smaller degree because it's not that important. But like somebody like Kit Wilson right
Hmm.
now, where it's just, oh, they're reacting well, cool. He's there every week now, where he wouldn't have been normally, but it's just,
Hmm.
oh, they're reacting well. Let's just do it. Instead of saying like, let's build to this, let's put Kit Wilson in the Rumble, and then maybe we'll see him at Mania, and he has a big moment where he beats Carmelo Hayes and wins the US. And it's like, no, throw him out there every week. It's working. People are reacting. Why the fuck not? Like,
Yep. And going to Braun Breaker, if there's one thing I'd like maybe done differently, given the benefit of hindsight, with Seth Rollins out with an injury, why did Braun Breaker have to turn on Seth right there and then? You could still have the Vision as like the heel group, still doing whatever Braun and Bronson Reed and Logan Paul and Paul Heyman do. Seth Rollins comes back, and then you can have a story where
thinking
Braun
it's his
Breaker,
group. Yeah.
it's his group now, and then you can go ahead with that because at that time maybe Braun Breaker is already the world heavyweight champion, and yeah, it just feels like we're just taking the wind out of his sails for no apparent reason. Yeah, because sometimes, like we'll get to our AEW segment. Like sometimes when something's hot, you just go with it, and sometimes you want a vision, you want an overall layout, but I think there needs to be some room for improvising when an act gets hot. Uh, One last thing for the Royal Rumble. We'll have our last little thoughts on what transpired over the Royal Rumble weekend, but it appears to be the final match that AJ Styles ever had in WWE. He did not give up like John Cena, and then Song by One Republic didn't play afterwards, but AJ Styles is in the sleeper hold. He passes out. He has a great moment with the crowd. He's getting a good send off. They give it time. He's about to drop his gloves, where, other folks will take off their boots and leave him in the middle of the ring to signify they're retiring. AJ was going to do that with his gloves, but he pulls him back, and then he goes off into the sunset. What do you think about AJ Styles' retirement? And was that it? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, if guys like Paul Rosenberg and Triple H are to be believed, that's it, brother.
My favorite
I
man.
did find it very comical how that happens, and then immediately we're told, no, 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 we talked to AJ backstage. He said he's done. So now, if AJ does do anything else, he's kind of looked at like the dick. But I don't know. I It didn't hit me, I think, as hard as I thought it was gonna. And I don't know if maybe it's because I believe deep down he'll maybe work in a TNA or an AEW. Um, but you know what? I think I sent this clip to you earlier in the week too, but that clip on Stephanie's podcast really kind of made me think, shit, yeah, this might be it. Just talking about his family. And his daughter sent a pretty sad text that, yeah, it kind of rocked me a bit too, even just hearing it, where the AJ is a guy who never would need to wrestle again, and he'd, be more than happy, I think, to retire. I I think for him, and I think he even put it on Stephanie's podcast, where he said like, the reason I put it back on is, this isn't like John Cena where he went around for a year and a half and said, no, 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 this is it. I'm done after this. No, 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 I'm done. That's his way of saying like, well, wrestlers never really retire. And you know, even let's say he doesn't make the jump to a TNA or an AEW, he's a guy that you could work a program in 3 years if he really gets that itch coming back, where he goes, hey, I really like Javon Evans, right? Like he's been doing some great stuff, and now he's way too young. He's not touching the title till he's at least 37. But let's just, something like that happens where he's human. He knows like they're all carnies at the end of the day. And you know, never say never, right? There's always money on the table. There's always a match to work, So I dig it. But yeah, AJ, that was
he is
good.
50 though. He is 50. It feels like if you know
It's
3
crazy
years down
because
the
he
road,
looks
that is
so good for
he
50.
looks
Like,
great for being 50, but 3 years down the road,
Mhm.
once you're already 50, I mean, a lot can change. But yeah, look at what
It's
he's
true.
doing to Stephanie McMahon there, saying the never say never. Left the door open just a bit, and no matter what, it's the end of his full-time WWE career, maybe the end of his full-time wrestling career, but I think there's still room for something. I mean, I watched the first episode of TNA Impact, the one where they went on AMC in the States, but still on Sportsnet 360 up here in Canada. I watched that first episode. AJ Styles was a guest on it. He looked at his old buddy Frankie Kazarian, who was the world champion TNA at the time, looked down at the belt, kind of hinted to that. I maybe you can. I don't know. Like, there's not really many folks left in TNA for AJ Styles to face, even though he was Mr. TNA for such a long time, for 12 years. In AEW, he has still some buddies there. And like you see some of the hints, like
Right.
I think you're seeing like his old tag team partner, his old rival in TNA, Christopher Daniels, who's still with AEW, saying that AJ will always be all elite. Or Mercedes Money vague posting that, yeah, he could be coming. Because there is some stuff, even if it's not a full time run, there's still some stuff for AJ Styles to do. He was the leader of the Bullet Club in New Japan Pro Wrestling right before he was going to be leaving for WWE, and Kenny Omega turns on him and he becomes a new leader. You could still do AJ Styles and Kenny Omega. They had like one match somewhere in Canada like 2 decades ago. They never had that match when they were their current
And
characters.
that's a massive match to do, you know.
You That would be one like they're going to Wembley Stadium in August, and I know it's funny because AJ Styles like has not been up until like recently not really protected as like a top star in WWE, but to the AEW fan base, I think there's a lot of value in AJ
Oh yeah,
Styles going there. A
that
lot of
doesn't matter.
symbolism.
Yeah.
And I think that match, AJ Styles and Kenny Omega, once now that they're now established, I think that would mean a lot. He has something like he was partners with the Young Bucks during the Bullet Club too. You could have a match with Will Ospreay even. There's maybe even one more match with Samoa Joe. Speaking of old TNA guys, there could be one
Yeah.
more match there. So it's interesting. So we'll see what happens next. But I talked about how like a decade ago was our last WWE pay-per-view together in Galaxy Cinemas in the Nanaimo, and AJ Styles was debuting. And then he had a good decade-long career in WWE. I want to reflect a little bit because I think what really struck me into how old we really are and how long we've been watching this was I remember seeing a snap from your fiance Brooke saying that it was like a few months ago saying, "Oh man, now I like AJ Styles. That's a cool move." I'm like, "You didn't like AJ Styles before?" And then I remember, "Oh right, God, yeah, he's just been here forever." But it was a big deal when AJ Styles was going to WWE. That was a big deal for
It was
us.
crazy. You know what's funny about that too? The context for some of the listeners is so Brooke, my fiance, never watched wrestling before we had started dating. We went to the Survivor Series in 24 together. Um, all she knew about AJ prior to this was the guy that was the janitor trying to track down Dominic Mysterio. And it's crazy for for a lot of you who I'm assuming listening have watched wrestling for a really long time. And for us who have seen AJ since, 2006, where that's kind of it. That's all she knew from his catalog of the years of, was him trying to, go Dominic into a match that he lost. And, she was like, oh, so I guess he's not that good anyways. And I'm like, well, it's not really that black and white. She also would kill me if I didn't mention that she called Liv Morgan winning the Rumble. When I told her a lot of us did, she said, no, 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 I did. So there you go, Brooke. You called it. That one's on you. I owe you a steak dinner.
She beat my prediction.
Yeah.
My prediction, Bianca Belair didn't even fucking return to the match.
Show up. Didn't even show up. And I don't think she's coming in the Rumble either, or the chamber either. So.
Oh, her finger
But
has to be toast. Warm buttery toast, but back on track. I'll let you back on track there, Ace.
No, but yeah, so it was interesting not having that context because I think we take that for granted a lot. you know, and it's funny, there's a psychological phenomenon in kids where everything they know, they assume you know. And I think sometimes that bleeds into now where, talking about wrestling, obviously we've watched it for a long time where Brooke's been really good for that for me, where it's like, no, everybody doesn't just know. Like, even we were talking about 2014 with the podcast, and you're 100% right. There's some 20-year-old kid watching right now who was probably 8 for that and has no recollection, didn't even watch till he was 10. So yeah, it's kind of getting over that to be like, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of people that just have no idea. Which is good because they come in with no judgments or no,
Yeah.
but it's also kind of like, what do you mean you don't know that? Like
Yeah.
I didn't even watch it and I knew it, right? So it's yeah.
It's like one thing I want to, because it's like you're seeing now, and one aspect I think that a reason why AJ Styles going to WWE is a big deal for us, because even though you see at the time that, they've got the working relationship, quote, quote, working relationship with TNA Wrestling, and folks will see TNA now as just, okay, that's just that wrestling that's on Sportsnet in place of WWE. For the longest time, TNA was, I guess, in the United States for TV, was the competition, for lack of a better term, to WWE. But TNA back then, even though they had stars, they never came close to like really competing with WWE the way AEW has managed over the last 7 years. But AJ Styles was the face of TNA throughout almost the entire time, like especially when we could watch TNA on Spike at the time. AJ was front and center. And then, of course, TNA is going under. They run into financial issues. AJ Styles becomes an even bigger star in Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. And then him coming to WWE, just seeing him as AJ Styles was wild to me, because he's Mr. TNA. WWE did not acknowledge TNA. They would never, hardly ever acknowledge it. And then even then, if you were, because WWE's mindset is, if you don't do it here, it doesn't count. That's how little they view the rest of the world of wrestling. Yeah. So AJ comes in, and even if you had stars who have made it elsewhere, like CM Punk was able to still be his character CM Punk, but Bryan Danielson became Daniel Bryan, and Samoa Joe still keeps his name, but he's in NXT. He's in the developmentals. AJ Styles debuted at the Royal Rumble as AJ Styles. He gets a WrestleMania match with Chris Jericho. He's facing Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship right afterwards. He beat up John Cena when John Cena was still like this overprotected god, face of the franchise. AJ Styles beat him, and then that year, AJ Styles, the TNA guy, was the WWE champion. That blew my mind that year.
Yeah. No, it's wild. Like, it even to go back to the TNA point, I remember one of the stories that came out of Mania last year. I think Hendry was talking about it. After his match with Orton, or it was before, it doesn't matter. But AJ comes up to him in Gorilla and says, man, if you would have told me when I was, 20 something that the TNA world champion would be performing at WrestleMania, like I wouldn't believe you. So, congrats, have fun, enjoy it. It's crazy again with context, because for so many years that just, they wouldn't mention it. Even when Hogan was there, right? Like that just, it was no. So yeah, it's wild now that, it's a different world.
Yeah. And now AJ, it's funny enough, because now that AJ's retired, because AJ was a top star for the first few years in WWE, but then at one point, it was around 2019, 2020, he just wasn't always a main eventer anymore. It was like he was the, lack of a better term, the gatekeeper in the middle card. So say if you have stars who are potentially on the rise, you'd kind of need to get through AJ Styles for a bit you need to get through AJ Styles to eventually get to the main event. And then he had a little bit of a renaissance, I want to say back in 2024, character-wise, when he was challenging Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship and having fantastic matches, and everyone realized, yeah, no, AJ still got it. Even in his late 40s, he's still the man. And now, funny enough, when he's retiring or could wrestle elsewhere, it feels like AJ's the hottest he's been in years, and WWE heated him up just for him not to be around full time. So if I'm AEW, I'm looking at my chops trying to sign him, because it feels like he's the hottest he's been in years.
you'd be crazy not to make him an offer. If especially what's it, February? I guess now is his deal's coming out.
Mhm.
Um, we'll see where that goes. In moments like this, I usually don't like to get my hopes too much up because then you're like, oh, it's gonna happen. And then he
Mhm.
signs on as ambassador and he's commentating main event, and you're like, okay. But I think AEW's, why wouldn't you make him an offer? At least to see, right? There's so much money to be made there.
Absolutely. Before we move on to, because some newsworthy stuff happened in WWE NXT since the last time we've been here. Any other notes or any other things do you want to touch on with the Royal Rumble?
Um, Real quick, I do kind of want to go over the women's main event scene and just kind of where we see Liv, whether she chooses Stephanie, whether she chooses Jade. Kind of, yeah, I just kind of want to touch on that real quick. And
Mhm.
just because I got a couple thoughts personally. I do think Liv, going back to when we were saying she did win the Royal Rumble. I do see her challenging for the women's world title on Raw. I don't know if that means we stay with Stephanie as champion. I imagine that's kind of the route they're going. Um, Especially because I don't know if I really see another top face on Raw, sorry, taking that spot from her. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be interesting where the program goes because it's interesting with Stephanie. I don't think she's been really given a whole lot to sink her teeth into yet with this title reign.
Mhm.
The after the EO victory and the match at WrestlePlay, like that was great.
Mhm.
And then it's kind of just been, it's been okay. So I hope at least with a program with the Judgment Day that we get more out of her as well. But for me personally, I see her 100% choosing Raw and running with things there.
Yeah, because Liv Morgan wins the Women's Royal Rumble, and the Women's Royal Rumble kind of disappointed me a little bit because with the men's side, they kind of hinted at some stuff, some stories that will be taking place after the match that you can look down the road. With the women's, I thought it was just someone enters, has a shine, they move on. Someone enters, they get to do their moves, move on. And I felt like that was the entire match for the most part. And then, of course, Liv wins. I'm happy that they gave someone like a Soul, or I think it was Sol Ruka. Sometimes I'm still bad with names.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no, it was Sol Ruka, who was from NXT Developmental, who lasted 40 something minutes. So good to see a new face doing well. But Liv challenging, it feels like that the natural rivalry, or if there's a match to build to, it feels like maybe throwback to Shawn Michaels challenging Diesel for the WWF Championship in 1995. It almost makes sense for Liv to try and challenge Raquel Rodriguez because Liv eliminated Raquel from the Royal Rumble, and then it just that was
That was
that.
a common theme
That's
too in the
much.
Rumble that I found interesting was there were so many like teasing these teams that they've spent so much time cultivating together, teasing are they going to break up? We saw it with Asuka and Kyrie, we saw it with Charlotte and Alexa, we saw it with Liv and Raquel. Um, Overall though, it's funny. I enjoyed the women's Rumble much more than I enjoyed the men's
Really?
coming out of
Okay.
maybe I just saw the inevitability with Roman.
Mhm.
I could kind of see where they were going. There was a few disappointments like the LA Knight stuff.
Mhm.
But with the women's rumble, I was actually pretty entertained all the way through.
All right. All
Yeah.
right. Interesting. And then, yeah, going forward, I mean, I think because they had Liv on SmackDown last night, interacting with Jade Cargill, and I think that's another one where I don't know if that's the route, but just kind of made me think. As much as I've loved Jade for years and years, it's just sort of hit me now. I don't think she could be the champion.
Oh,
She's just
yeah.
not that, unfortunately.
They've unfortunately, but to be fair, they've also not really given her much to sink her teeth into. Like, I mean, how much have we really even seen her since she beat Tiffany? You
Yeah,
know,
I think that's the thing too. But to play devil's advocate to that, are they just shielding her because, well, Jade Cargill
it's
looks like a
still
million
not. You could
bucks.
make that argument. Yeah.
She's unless because I think I was like looking through her profile on Cage Match recently. Like she has not worked hardly anything. I think since becoming the champion, if you're including house shows, she has wrestled 9 times since November. If you're including house shows like non-televised events, and a lot of these matches, like like all of her one-on-one matches on TV have been under 5 minutes. And her character in AEW, where she was that bitch and she just crushes girls in minutes, and she's like their Bill Goldberg. You can have Jade do that. I don't think they have the appetite to have a champion like that. And if you want someone to work like 10 plus minutes, like I think we may have touched on it last week, can't remember, but basically you can be a great athlete and not a great pro wrestler, but you can be a great pro wrestler who's not athletic. And while Jade looks like $1 million, she's had a lot of training over the years with great wrestling minds, and there's just some sort of disconnect, and it feels like she cannot just have those main event caliber matches. And if she's hardly working over the last couple of months as champion, should she be champion?
Well, and this is a whole nother topic for a whole nother video, or a whole nother podcast sometime. But honestly, man, that's one of, I think, the biggest problems with the lack of how many times these guys work. I'm not, trying to call back to 5 nights a week where you're in a different town and I'm very pro wrestler, in the sense of, I'm so glad they're getting more money now and they're working way less dates. That's fucking awesome. They're finally getting their share of the pie. It should be bigger. That being said, there's no way you're going to get better if you're not working those matches all the time. Even practicing, because I'm sure they're running stuff outside. Working in front of a crowd is different. That's where, those Friday nights in, Tulsa, Oklahoma, in front of maybe 700 people, that's where that was good, because you get the chance to get those reps in. I think I sent you the video too earlier this week that came out with Cody even kind of talking about that with Solo, where, there was this bit during the Bad Blood match with Roman where he starts like banging the floor, and Solo looks at him kind of like, and he comes up to him afterwards and he says like, hey, can I talk to you for a sec? And he's like, I don't like the begging for the cheers. They'll come, just you got to be patient. And Cody's like, well, yeah, they'll come today, but one day I'm going to be generic guy 4, you're going to be generic guy 8. And then he's like, and then I stopped myself because I realized that's probably never going to happen for a guy like Solo. He may never experience that. He came in during the hottest angle, and yeah, he'll probably work SmackDown matches very happily until he retires with hopefully a whole lot of money. But you don't get those reps in when you're not wrestling, when you're not working. There's so many guys that are an example that now it's just, I think WWE went through that purge for a while of hiring up everybody, so they didn't jump ship to AEW. And it wasn't even about having them work. It was just about having them not work over there. And it's tough because how are these guys supposed to grow? How are they supposed to develop? Like,
we could be here all day for that. And yeah. Until then, yeah. I mean, that's why I'm kind of open Braun Breaker, for example, would they get more matches and like give him all the matches, let him be champion, give him like a match every week, because the more reps, the better. It's like with any sort of job, I suppose. One thing I kind of wanted to touch on. Any
artisan would agree,
Yeah. One thing two things I wanted to quickly touch on quickly in the men's rumble that I appreciated big time. Well, maybe not appreciate. One I appreciated was the presence of new stars like Obafemi, Javon Evans, and Trick Williams after getting the call up from NXT Developmental. Javon I think he might have been the Iron Man. Obafemi had a bunch of eliminations. The crowd really responded to Trick Williams, so 2 thumbs up. And Trick interrupted Drew McIntyre on SmackDown last night, so maybe that's something they can do before it's inevitably Drew and Cody at WrestleMania. So, thumbs up for the new stars. We dig that. And one thing, and granted, this is me just kind of, I forget the term for it, Schadenfreude. I think it might have been Schadenfreude. I don't know. I can't remember stuff in the heat of a moment like this, but there are some wrestlers who some were in WWE at first and then went to AEW, and now they're back in WWE and kind of didn't have the best attitudes before they left AEW. My favorite moment of the whole night, actually, Rusev, who was Miro in AEW, Rusev comes back for like the first time on TV in 3 months or so, whatever it was, and he's out in a minute. I laughed my ass off. I'm a sicko. I took great pleasure in that. I don't know about you, because Ray Phoenix, even for example, AEW star, kind of made some problems wanting to get out of his contract to join his brother who's going to be going to WWE. Phoenix gets tossed out rather quickly, doesn't really do too much. Aleister Black was apparently in Saudi Arabia, was in the match though. So, I don't know. I'm sure this is just me.
Well, you got to get La Parka in there, right? So,
absolutely. Yeah, no, Finn Balor couldn't have been in the Royal Rumble match after that go home angle on Raw, but he couldn't be in the Rumble match. Also, I should have brought this earlier. What was CM Punk doing in Saudi Arabia? Why was he there?
an ambassador, baby.
Oh,
They're best friends now. I don't know if you saw, was it Night of Champions? They're on speaking terms again. The situationship is back on. So,
oh my God, like that killed me. Okay, so for those who don't know, way back when, because like CM Punk has talked about, like, some of the human rights violations that Saudi Arabia pulls off, and like it kind of cultivated with CM Punk back in 2019, mocking The Miz by telling Miz to go suck a blood-covered you-know-what in Saudi Arabia. And so that line always just...
And let's just say the Prince did not like that.
No, that didn't get over with him, brother.
I don't know why, yeah.
That wasn't good heat. That was go-away heat for him.
That was go-away heat for the Saudis, yeah.
So CM Punk, he finally goes to Saudi Arabia last year. And I understand that because it's part, in my opinion, I thought it was part of a humiliation ritual. I honestly thought of it because you want your match with John Cena in John Cena's last year, your buddy, your pal, John Cena. You got to go to Saudi Arabia. And John Cena even mentioned that in his promo. What are you going to do, hero? So I understand that. But you are CM Punk. You could still be a punk rock band and get a big record label and still not be considered a sellout. CM Punk, though, he doesn't even have a match. He's still going to Saudi Arabia after everything.
Yeah.
Don't say it.
Well, I mean, the post show isn't going to analyze itself. So I appreciate corporate Phil's commitment. Yeah, I don't know. The crazy part to me that I can't believe we haven't mentioned yet was through all that you just that you just spewed. That was actually John Cena's favorite match of all time too. Was CM Punk reconciling with the Saudi fans.
I hate to be not his favorite match, his favorite moment.
Yeah,
I swear to God,
he doesn't have a favorite match.
A rib.
Yeah,
like just
that's
because
crazy.
It's gotta be a joke. That's gotta be like an
Umaga in a last man standing match was right there. That was pretty cool. I did the step thing for the first time. Like, it was right there.
I think that was just John Cena playing a joke on Punk deep down, but crazy time. Yeah, so that was the Royal Rumble week. We kind of got a direction for WrestleMania. Want to touch on two things quickly for NXT. A new champion, NXT champion Joe Hendry. Say his name. He appears after, Obafemi was the previous NXT champion. He had relinquished the belt because he's getting the call up to the main roster. There's a 6-man ladder match on NXT. Some thought Ricky Saints, the former Ricky Starks in AEW, was the most I don't know how to frame it. He was the biggest star of the bunch, definitely the most protected on NXT, and Joe Hendry wins. We'll see what happens. I don't really watch NXT all too much anymore because it's kind of gone downhill a wee bit creatively, and they were not ready for all those folks to get called up. But Joe
young
Hendry,
up-and-comer Joe Hendry in his, mid-30s, is he?
But, yeah, God, he's not that young, but yeah, I thought he'd be on the main roster.
I think developmental should be developmental, personally. That's kind of my...
I want to see,
nothing against him. I do really like Joe Hendry, but...
Yeah, I want to see independent wrestlers who've never been on TV in NXT. I want these former football players and basketball players who've never put in a headlock. I want to see them. I want them in developmental. Yeah. Joe Hendry, he's been on the independents for well over a decade, and he's one of those guys who's kind of gotten into the mainstream. I've had buddies who don't watch wrestling send me TikToks of just the meme, the say his name and he appears. His name is Joe Hendry, and then the song gone like the Billboard in the UK. So, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, they at least start doing stuff with Joe. I mean, I like the idea of Joe. There's just something, maybe this is going to sound this is going to be rude to me. Not that he's a bad worker, because he can have good matches, but just the way he moves, he looks like he moves like a character in SmackDown versus Raw 2007. He moves around like a video game character, like, not like he's overly stiff, but overly mechanical, like artificial intelligence is telling what body part to move. Maybe it's just me. It always kind of takes me out of his matches a little bit.
You know what's funny? That was one of my initial critiques for Damian Priest when he first got called up. Was I said it felt like his presentation, especially too, felt like what I would have done on SmackDown vs. Raw 07. You know, like he's doing the flaming arrows, like, oh my god, I would have done that 100%. And you know, he had like the undershirt and the leather pants and the theme. Yeah, I remember that was one of my initial critiques for he grew into quite the performer. But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I like Hendry, but yeah, I don't know.
One thing I
It's
forgot
fine.
about in the Royal, one thing I forgot about in the Royal Rumble. Sorry to cut you off. I just realized
Oh, there you go.
the former powerhouse Hobbs in AEW debuted in the Royal
Yeah, I was
Rumble.
gonna say.
Royce Keys, and he didn't do too much. Like, he eliminated your boy Damian Priest, former world heavyweight champion. So they think of him, they think he's something, but of course he wasn't going to win the whole thing. But he wasn't
And
on
then
TV
he's not on
this
TV
week.
this week. Yeah.
What the hell? He's the former powerhouse Hobbs. They mentioned that he's now Royce Keys. It's like, if you got him, I understand you just got him from AEW. He was the World Trios champion AEW just a few weeks ago. He was the champion right up until his contract expires, because Tony Khan thought he was going to re-sign. I understand you want to show him off at the Royal Rumble. If he's not going to be on TV, wait until he's ready for TV.
I got a little complaint too, where I don't know if you saw the bit. I think I saw it pop up on Twitter, but there was, of course, they film, you know, Royce Keys coming to the Rumble and da 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 da, and they show him like before the match, looking around the empty arena, like, wow, this is what you've always. And it's like, dude, I don't know. I mean, for a guy who's been at Wembley and seen
He was
81,000,
at
like,
Wembley.
yeah, I don't know. To me, it's little things like that where it's just, you know, you're trying to hang on the rim and you're just, yeah, literally the signing was just a fuck you to AEW. I will say I appreciated how they did show the name and then this is what he is now. Because I think people are a lot more receptive to, like, you know, kind of similar to with Kenta with Hideo Itami, where it was like, this is
Yeah.
what I was, this is who I am. It's like you're not just saying like, oh, Daniel Bryan, that's not his name, right?
Yeah, or
So I
Mariah May, Blake
appreciated that.
Monroe in NXT, who was Mariah
Yeah,
May in AEW just a few weeks prior. Like, I understand they want names that they could trademark. Like,
I
if
get it. Yeah, I
Hobbs
get it.
goes off in WWE, he can't be Royce Keys, and then, you know, they want someone that they can trademark. But if the name Powerhouse Hobbs is right there, I'm happy that, like, it seems like the name Royce Keys means something to Hobbs. But if something's right there, Powerhouse Hobbs, what a cool name. Why couldn't you keep or put Powerhouse in there somehow? Powerhouse Royce Keys, even.
Maybe they call him the powerhouse. To be fair, we haven't seen him since, so we don't know what they're gonna do.
Fair enough. That's not our fault.
They should have. Yeah, that's not our fault. That is 100% not our fucking fault. But that's the other part. It's like, okay, you know, going back to this whole they don't work, you know, this whole part-time thing that they've been flirting with since 2010, 2011, they've almost conditioned you now. If you see a guy too much, he's not that important.
Yes.
Because so now it's like you need to see them once a month to make it feel like a cinematic. And it's dumb and I don't like it. And they should be around more. And we should get to know these characters. I shouldn't have to log on to Twitter afterwards and follow Royce Keys to see what he's up to. That's yeah,
Fair
that's
play.
my rant.
All right. Now the last little bit of news in NXT after I distracted myself. Last week, it was shortly after like our podcast was finished, actually. Ava, who is the on-air authority figure for NXT TV, her contract had expired and she announced that she was not renewing. And she had been there, I think it was 5 years. She had been on TV for like 2 or 3 years. She had 6 matches or so, I think 2 of them singles. She becomes the on-air authority figure for NXT. And then she's gone. And I watch NXT on Tuesday, or see some of NXT on Tuesday. It's like the scene in the TED TV series where, yeah, but they got him. That's what happened to Ava. They made Robert Stone the interim general manager. They did not acknowledge Ava at all, and she was in a key storyline with the returning Tony D'Angelo. I thought maybe she can get whacked or something. They kill off the character of Ava because they've killed off characters in NXT before, believe it or not.
Pretty funny canon wise, yeah.
Yeah, but she's just gone. It's like she never existed, and she's gone. And the thing that's about this, like, that's notable because Ava, I think I got her full name here. Give me one moment here, Ace. Brace with me. So her name is Simone Alexandra Garcia Johnson. She's the daughter of The Rock. She's The Rock's daughter, and she just leaves. But I thought, like, anytime I saw Ava, I thought, you know what? Maybe this business just isn't for her. Yeah, she's the rock star, but it just happens, you know? Like, sometimes it's just not for you. But one thing that, like, really sort of wonder if there's anything else going on there, she's since deactivated her Twitter account, but she wrote, and now that I can say this with my full chest, fuck ICE and that entire administration. And then Ava deactivates her Twitter account. And I just wonder how much is going on there, because, you know, WWE and TKO seems to be so hand in hand with the Trump administration right now. And I wonder, okay, I know that Triple H is on RFK's health committee, whatever the hell. He's writing columns for Fox about it. It's UFC, but Dana White's buddy with Trump. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon were there for when Linda McMahon was getting sworn in as the head of the education department. And I know that, say, for example, CM Punk, like last year, mentioned, like, he believes that he doesn't want him to be all political. But here's Ava. She's the Rock's daughter. Could probably get away with it. And she feels like she couldn't say anything really until she was gone. I don't know. That whole departure just blew my mind, just trying to maybe read between the lines there. How did you make of it?
Yeah. I try not to be super political, especially, you know, not in a one of those anti-politics, like, oh, just everyone has an opinion. And not even in a sense of like, you know, well, I want everyone to like me. So it's just for so much, like, I've been getting a little more, obviously, with the way the world's been going. Um, yeah, I don't know. Touching on you saying Ava feeling worried to mention anything, I don't know if she had that ego of, well, I'm the Rock's daughter, I'm untouchable. I don't think she had that, which, you know, it's surprising for a nepo baby. Um, I think for her, she was also somebody who wanted really to stand on her own and not just be, you know, for some guys, you know, like we look at like a Cody Rhodes, for instance, and his whole thing is about honoring his dad. She's her own person. Her dad's obviously one of the biggest actors in fucking the world. Um, I don't think it was as important for her to name drop, let's say. And I think for her it was just, it's tough because how do you even mention that without getting a talking to, no matter who you are, right? Because at the end of the day, TKO and WWE are now so embedded within this administration and this regime that you really can't say much along the line. I mean, you know, we saw it recently even with Becky Lynch at the Raw in Toronto being like, you know, this ice here is dangerous, you know, like we should abolish ice, like, you know, and yeah, we see another example of it that I'm sure we're getting to pretty quickly here. But for me personally, as somebody who's grown into a bit more of a political person, um, it's so important no matter where people land on the political spectrum. It is so important to promote healthy discourse. It is so important for people to communicate and actually talk, because how the hell are we supposed to find a middle ground unless we do? Um, so it's really disheartening to hear that somebody like Ava, you know, like we say, oh, you know, she's got it in the back pocket. She's the Rock's daughter. She, you know, it's really disheartening to hear that even somebody like that's like, I did not feel fucking comfortable saying anything negative about, you know,
Yeah, or
yeah.
as I mentioned, Punk. So CM Punk, when he returned to WWE, that wasn't his first return to wrestling. He returned to AEW in 2021, and as someone during the media rounds with WrestleMania last year, Punk says, "I don't think WWE wants us to be overly political." In AEW, CM Punk had two shirts that he wore, not even his own merchandise, two shirts he wore that basically promoted abortion rights during shows in Texas. And then he actually had a shirt that had the transgender flag on it, like the transgender colors, like blue, pink, and white. And then there's just this shift with him that he doesn't have that in WWE. And you touched on Becky. She has to post on vaguely on social media to kind of get her point across. And Sammy has had to do the same thing. When there were the No Kings protests, Punk did some sort of post on his story, but it's just a contrast to what Punk was doing in AEW or just what's even going on in AEW. And I know folks will want to listen to us, or if they are listening to us, it's tough in the world right now. Silly pro wrestling is usually an escape, but we were talking about what to lead with here today. And probably the most newsworthy wrestling story was from Wednesday Night Dynamite, because for those who didn't see, like, and it got like mainstream attention, like from commentators. NBC wrote a story on it. It was the main event of Dynamite this week. It was from Las Vegas. Brody King, who has made his feelings on ice known, being completely anti-ice. He's challenging MJF. MJF's the AEW World Champion. Basically, if Brody King wins, he gets an AEW World Championship match. It's the main event, and before the bell's about to ring, this crowd, as clear as day, is chanting, "Fuck ice, fuck ice, fuck ice." And Tony Schiavone on commentary stops what he's saying. The referee, Bryce Remsburg, admits that he was holding off on the bell to let it marinate a little bit more. There's like a meme photo of MJF going around how he was looking. He was like, I think NBC said he was startled. To me, it looked like he was trying not to laugh.
Yeah.
But you saw how black and white that was, and it just took off as like a pretty big story this week. What'd you think of Wednesday when you were watching it, but then seeing the reaction as well?
Yeah. I think protest in any form is vital for a democracy. I think that was really cool. Um, it's tough too because a lot of the discourse I saw was a lot of positive, but there was definitely some negative in there too. And it sucks because it's from a lot of these same people who, believe in this whole freedom of speech until it's against the speech that they agree with. Um, and even though I do tend to lean little bit more left on the political scale, I do really believe in the right to say anything. And with the right to say anything comes, well, with this. And I think it was really cool. I think this is something for, unfortunately, maybe not unfortunately, I won't say, but I think Brody King's going to kind of explode after this. Um, you could argue this is for the wrong reasons. We should be having him explode for his talent or his, ability or whatever gets the job done, whatever, sells tickets. But yeah, I think this is going to be really big for him, especially because we see so much, especially with WWE crowds, of like, they kind of give you this thing where, this is his catchphrase, sing his theme song, right? Um, where this was just, this wasn't something that Brody was trying to put on himself. This was just something natural that happened. And because of it, we got a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, and so I don't think that moment happens without Brody King in the ring, because this all kind of stemmed, even though on social media he's made his position known. It was back in June of last year. AEW had their first show in Mexico at Arena Mexico in Mexico City. Brody King came out in an Abolish ICE shirt, and that kind of folks took notice, and Brody's kind of continued with his activism of being completely anti-ice. He recently had like a partnership to print a shirt that's basically his outfit from Arena Mexico that night with him in the Abolish ICE shirt. That's on now their shirt. It's Shirtception. And I think they've raised just under $60,000 going to the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee Education Fund. And so he's been having that presence out there, but I think that doesn't happen if he doesn't wear that Abolish ICE shirt last year.
100%.
And because we've seen it, like, it's tragic what's going on. Like in Minnesota with the during the Timberwolves games where they've been having moments of silence, there'll be a chant of someone during the moment of silence saying, "Ice, go home," or something, and then the crowd will applaud. This felt like, and I thought, like, when I was watching, it's like, oh man, this is pretty cool. But then the reaction to it, folks were stunned. And I guess on TV in front of just a regular crowd, maybe there wasn't that black and white of a realization of a crowd just going, fuck ICE, and there's no way to get away from it. And really, I'd say AW, MJF, Brody King, referee Bryce Remsburg, the announcers, Tony Khan, probably directing this in the headset in the back, the production team, they really let that moment breathe where you could not shy away from it.
Yeah.
Or another
pretty funny tweets regarding it too, which I won't repeat here because some of them aren't. But it was, I thought it was really cool. I thought it was one of those things where, you know, a lot of wrestling crowds would have stifled something like that or tried to move on from it, which I like the fact that, like, okay, if we're going free speech, if we're saying anybody can say anything they want and, you know, a civil discourse that's not, you know, violent, fuck yeah, let's run with it.
Another one, just like in terms of like how you can kind of, I'm not sure, like have your stances like that, but Hangman Adam Page last year, so he cut obviously a promo in Spanish at that same Arena Mexico show, basically telling the Mexican audience that the Mexican people that would work with his family's farm in Virginia, his tobacco farm, that they were just hard working people and taught them the value of hard work. But then a couple months later, ICE ads are airing on TBS during AW Dynamite, and this is a like Warner Brothers Discovery, which owns TBS. They pay AEW like well over $100 million per year for their media rights. So that advertisement comes on. The Hangman goes on the Blue Sky, basically says, no, fuck that. He actually said that. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but he dropped an F-bomb. And he encouraged fans to email Warner Brothers Discovery regarding the advertisement and tell them to pull it. And Hangman was the world champion at that time. I think the ad stopped. And it's not like the Hangman got the belt taken off of him right afterwards. He was still champion for like 2 more months or so, but he didn't get a slap on the wrist or anything like that for mentioning that. And he felt empowered enough to be able to speak out on his mind like that without having to vague post or anything like that. So it's, I don't know, after Wednesday, it's really interesting now to see that dynamic between AEW and WWE, seemingly how folks are comfortable if they feel empowered enough, because even if, say, there's no ban in place on what you want to express in terms of your views, the fear of posting something,
yeah,
I mean, that's kind of
when there's no way in this climate you can come out and say, like, hey, don't share your thoughts, because that's very unconstitutional. Well, who knows what the fucking Constitution is now down there, but that's very unconstitutional. It's just, you know, the fear of like, hey, it's a free country, you can say whatever you want, but, you know, freedom of speech is does not equal freedom of consequence, right? Which I do agree with too, but it definitely can be weaponized in that sense, where people who see something that they don't agree with don't feel as compelled to speak out about it because of that fear of repercussion. You know, and it sucks, especially when you know, you really feel like you're doing the right thing, and that goes for the right too. That's not a problem that's exclusive to the left, but again, just we're never gonna, you know, get back to normalcy, especially down in the States, until that civil discourse is back, because that's what it is, man. Like, that's
and for Brody King, and like in terms of the reaction, so he is going to get his championship match at Grand Slam Australia, which is a TV show airing next Saturday on the 15th, or probably I think that's the 14th on Valentine's Day. But I don't think these reactions, I don't think this is going to be like a one reaction it's done, because AEW has a bunch of shows coming up in Southern California. I think they got a show in El Paso, Texas, which is a border city. And then on the schedule here, Wednesday, March 25th, they're in St. Paul, Minnesota. Hopefully, this isn't going on until then, but that could be another one where, you know, all because Brody King. If you ever think your voice doesn't matter, Brody King wore this Abolish ICE shirt back in June. It's touched on by the fans. 8 months later, it makes headlines. I just have fruit fly come in my vision. And then a month from now, they're going to be in Minnesota, and hopefully this isn't continuing until then, but that could be another one where maybe there's like another showing. So it'd be interesting to follow going forward.
Yeah, no, you know what's funny in all this, because this is obviously a very important issue in the real world. In my fake, stupid, silly pro wrestling world, I'm usually not a fan of a contender beating the champion to become the contender. I always think that's a little like, well, they should be champion. Um, but in this, obviously, that's not important. But yeah, no, I thought this was a really cool moment for a lot of people too. Who, I mean, as horrible as it sounds, not to get all capitalist about it, for this is kind of shining a light on another promotion that's not just WWE.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, so much of life is divided now with one or the other. Are you red or blue? Do you drink Coke or Pepsi? Do you play Xbox or PlayStation? Right? And I can definitely see now this becoming like, oh, well, WWE is Republican, AEW is Democratic, and it sucks because so much of life now is just, where do you fit on the spectrum? There's this side, there's that side, and I'm not huge on that, but I do like the idea of eyeballs getting onto a product that they might not have been on before. So I think it should be. I know we joked about this too, you and I personally, but for Brody and MJF to both tweet back at the news sources the date for their match is just, yeah. I think it's really cool for these guys too, because they obviously have a really good relationship in real life, and you can tell that this match with Brody was something that, like, MJF, you're the champion. Who do you want to work with, right? I remember, a lot of times when guys get to this position, once they're, it's who do you want to work with, right? A good example I remember always saying in 2005 with Eddie, right? Before he passed away, it was like, okay, well, we don't really have, a clear vision for you. Who do you want to, I want to work with Ray. I love working with Ray Mysterio. And it kind of feels like that, where MJF was like, oh, my buddy's Brody. I'm champion now. Let's give him a match. And it's really cool because this very easily could have just been a one-off. This really easily could have just been like, they have their match, they do this, and then MJF wins, moves on to whatever he's doing, come Dynasty or come Revolution.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool now that there's a reason to kind of stick around for a guy like Brody and see what he's doing post this program, because he's probably not winning the title, but that's
Yeah.
not super
And
important right now.
it's going on the title because, the story we touched on last week, it's just a bunch of contenders coming after MJF's AEW World Championship. Brody King has his match with MJF at Grand Slam Australia on Saturday the 14th. Also on that show, it looks like it's a stat card, quite frankly, for a free TV show. Hangman Adam Page will be taking on Andrade El Idolo, and the winner of that will face the champion at the next pay-per-view in Revolution in March. And that comes after Andrade El Idolo beats Kenny Omega on Dynamite. Fresh coming back from WWE. Andrade, the push continues, and now on Wednesday, there'll be a face-to-face confrontation with Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland. Both are still going after MJF's World Championship. It's going to be a big show for Grand Slam Australia on the Saturday. And then from there, who knows what happens with Brody? Who knows what happens with this world title scene? How are you seeing this play out, or how should this play out?
Yeah, what's interesting is, like, when not gonna lie, when I first heard the news about Andrade going back to AEW, I was very skeptical. Of course, right? I mean, it's kind of funny at this point. Because that's what, the fourth go around now, like a little ping pong ball. But
I
I
think he's
will
settled now.
say,
He looks
you know what's
in
funny?
great
I
shape.
think, well, I mean, it's kind of tough
He's
too when
working hard.
you burn some bridges. You know, when you realize you're on that last chance, you're not jumping again. So I think when you realize, okay, this is kind of it now. This is sort of that last chance. We better make it work. I'm very pleasantly surprised to see how he's fit in quite nicely
Yeah,
in this new
he's
role. I think he's doing
he's
really good
working
stuff right
hard.
now.
He's working
Yeah,
hard. He's
okay.
having great matches. That match with Kenny on the Wednesday, and go out of your way to watch that whole show. But go out of your way to watch that match specifically if you haven't already. Uh, yeah, Andrade looks great, but because last week was perplexed because Andrade beat Swerve Strickland, who's been a star in AEW over the last 2 years, and this is Andrade. I guess he didn't leave on bad terms in AEW, but still a guy who went to WWE, didn't really make it on the main roster. He comes back, and it's the old WWE guy coming back to beat your star, and he did that again with Kenny Omega. And it's at the point now where I'm thinking, okay, I don't think Andrade is going to become the champion. Because it's funny, we've been watching
Is there a
AEW
part of you
for
that does?
entire. Pardon me?
I would say, is there a part of you that does? Because there's a part of me that does. There's a part of me that wants to see him beat Hangman and run a program with MJF.
You see, that's where I'm kind of getting to. I was thinking because looking at Tony, we've watched AEW since its inception. Tony Khan has a plan, like he has a board, and like sometimes he'll be forced into making a change, but then somehow he'll always try and get back on track to finish a story, like MJF and Adam Cole. After Adam Cole was injured in 2023 with the broken foot, he comes back. They're still finishing that story somehow, some way, even though it was a moment in time that's gone now. So now you've got Andrade in here. He's red hot since coming back. The fans treat him like a star. And I'm not sure maybe if Tony always thought, okay, it's going to be Hangman against MJF here, because when Andrade tried to come back to AEW, there were some legal issues, like when he was reportedly fired by WWE, and then when he went to AEW, WWE tried to enforce a year-long no-compete clause because he got fired.
Yeah.
And then after, thanks to his buddy Roosh giving him his lawyer, he must have had a prime Saul Goodman representing him, a good old slipping Jimmy helping him out. Andrade was able to get out of that, and now he's here. So I don't know if maybe he would be in the plans for being one of these contenders as part of the chase for MJF. But if your plan is at some point that Hangman's going to challenge MJF, whether it's at Revolution or at some other point throughout the calendar year, or maybe Hangman's the one that's supposed to beat MJF, I'd say we were talking earlier about long-term storytelling. Like, okay, you still have a vision, but you have to have some room to improvise. I'm at the point now, I would like to see Andrade beat Hangman and challenge for the championship, because it's a new, fresh matchup, and Andrade feels red hot right now. That's something I want to see. I think he would be cheered because even though he's part of the heel group, the Don Callis family, he would be cheered big time in Los Angeles, in SoCal against MJF. And I think Andrade is locked in. He knows that this is his home. You could do the Hangman match another time. Like, I'm sure my dream of Kenny Omega challenging MJF at Dynasty in Vancouver with us in attendance, I think that will still happen because Kenny lost. And you can always heat these guys back up again in a brief because they're top guys. The Hangman can be rehabilitated in a month or so. Andrade's hot. He's new. Let's go.
When the nice thing is too, like, for better or worse, a lot of these guys that are, with this whole walls are closing in on MJF kind of storyline we're rocking with, and there's tons of guys gunning for him. The unfortunate part of that is we have seen a lot of these matches before, whether it's,
They did Kenny
Hangman,
they did
whether it's
MJF and the
Joe,
Hangman
whether it's
last year at Revolution. It opened. It was a great match.
Yeah.
And then they had another match later in the year. And I know there's only one match with Kenny and MJF, but you can save that for later just because you need more folks in the main event scene. Or
well, that was kind of the point that I was getting to was no, it's in like just a lot, since we've seen a lot of these matches, the good side of that is that we can run them fucking whenever. Like, it doesn't need to, well, we had Hangman penciled for, March, so that's the match, like we can do a Hangman match in the summer, double or nothing. It doesn't need to be, and again, going back to that when the iron's hot, fucking use it. Like, just
Hmm.
it's clearly working right now. Because a lot of these guys now, again, to make you feel fucking super old, been working together 7 years in AEW, which is a disgusting sentence to say.
Kenny Omega has been
Um,
away for a good chunk of that with health issues, though. But he's
yeah,
always been a top guy, though. But
but just yeah, and we've seen a lot of these guys work together, whether it's the Hangmans, whether it's the Joes, and yeah, it's nice to kind of get that new sort of fresh face in the main event scene, which honestly I didn't really see since Swerve.
yeah,
That
Swerve
was kind of the
was
last
more
time where
feels like
we've
the last one.
seen kind of a new person kind of break through that wasn't, Daniel Bryan, for instance, or Bryan
Yes.
Danielson, I should say.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm all for Andrade. I quite frankly, I hope he wins. I hope we get the match with MJF. Because I think, right off the bat, you think heel versus heel, but I don't know. I think there's something to do there.
Yeah, agreed. And it looks like the walls are closing in because we could have more contenders too. I don't know how much value you'll put into this one, but one of their top stars, who hasn't been the champion yet, but one of their top stars, Will Ospreay, has been out since the summer with a neck injury. He's gotten surgery recently. He just because it's such a serious invasive surgery, I can't imagine he's coming back anytime soon. I think even trying
Right.
to make Wembley Stadium with and Will Ospreay's English coming back to Wembley in August might be too soon, but they aired a video
Unfortunate. Yeah.
package of Will Ospreay on Dynamite. I imagine if he's coming back, he's right in the title picture. So maybe that's
Oh,
something
you
that
got
will
to
happen.
assume, yeah.
Yeah, because he got some contenders right now, but I'm not sure if maybe Wembley, but I figure Will Ospreay as a top babyface at some point feels like a natural progression. It feels like he's probably just going to be put into this as well.
Yeah, no, totally. I definitely see that whenever he's able to come back. I was under the impression too that it wasn't going to be anytime soon. I would obviously love to see it before Wembley.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll kind of see where that is, because let's say, in that perfect fantasy booking world where a guy like AJ does come, if you've got like AJ Omega and then MJF Osprey, that's
That's
it's
a big
crazy.
show,
That's
brother.
awesome. Yeah, it's a big show.
And another contender, because on Collision last week, and we sort of buried the lead from last week's Collision. We'll get to it in a second, but Darby Allin pretty much declares that he too is going to be trying to challenge MJF for the World Championship. And right now, Darby's not priority. He's in a feud with Clark Connors and Gabe Kidd of the former War Dogs and New Japan Pro Wrestling. But I want to know what you think on Darby, because it feels like someone trying to break through. It feels like Darby has had chances where he should have broken through. Like he had an I Quit match with John Moxley at a pay per view last year, Wrestle Dream in October. But what do you think about him challenging him now? Because at one point, or probably over multiple points, he was supposed to be the world champion. It feels like they're not building him to be the world champion right now. And I guess if this ends with Darby beating MJF, I don't know what you think about Darby being presented as like a main eventer right now. And is that something that you see happening? Maybe he's the one who beats MJF after all this time.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never, not that I'm not huge on Darby. I've never seen it with him. I don't think as much as some people have. Um, I definitely think it's something that they could still work towards. With him to, yeah, it was funny because I did think him declaring was a little premature just with how heavy the scene is right now. I think in a way though, that's their kind of way of having him work with some of those guys that are near and up towards there. Maybe it's something in a month that I kind of come around on, or sorry, a month. Maybe it's something in like a year or so that I come around on if he's building some momentum. But personally, I've never been a huge Darby guy. Um, but I do see, and I'd be happy to be wrong. I do see if they can work enough over the next year, have him work with some of these dudes. It's funny to think of. He's kind of always been knocking on the door.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, God, he was Punk's first match when he came back.
Yeah,
Like he's always been right there, and I think a lot of people forget that. But it's tough. It kind of almost feels like, not to knock a guy, but kind of also sort of feels like a Sami Zayn situation for me in a lot of ways, where it's like, how many times are you gonna be the bridesmaid before, right? So
And
I think
that's
that's probably where I associate him more so. That's harder for me to kind of look at him as that top level, you know.
fair. And some of it's important because, like, of course, how many times you're gonna be close, but then yeah, it's tricky because Darby, some of it has been self-forced as well, because in 2024, he was planning to climb Mount Everest and he got the green light to be able to do that. He unfortunately, I think he broke his foot or something and he wasn't able to climb. So he had to like delay his trip by a year. But going into the fall of 2024, at a show that I attended to at the Tacoma Dome, Wrestle Dream 24, it was going to be Bryan Danielson's last match. And Bryan Danielson was the AEW World Champion. It was pitched that Darby was going to beat Bryan Danielson in his last match and become the world champion. And then plans changed, brother. And John Moxley becomes the champion. The Death Riders become the top heel group for over a course of the calendar year. But it looks like Darby was going to beat John Moxley. But Darby, instead of being around and ready to challenge for the championship, he climbed Mount Everest last year. And so that kind of removes you out of it. And Tony Khan continued with his vision, like I'm sure the plan was always John Moxley's going to lose at All In 2025 at Globe Life Field in Texas in our first stadium show in the United States. I'm sure that was a plan, but then Darby was gone. And it's like, okay, who feels the most hot right now? And that was the Hangman, Adam Page. And so that ending happened. But 3 months later, the feud with Darby and Moxley's comes to a conclusion. Darby and John Moxley are having an I Quit match. Darby wins in ways where it's like the whole Death Riders are trying to attack Darby and trying to make him quit. He won't. Old man Sting comes back with gray hair. He looked like Harrison Ford in like the new Star Wars trilogy. Gray as a goose. Gray as a
You
ghost.
watched Shrinking at all yet? He's pretty good in that too.
He looks good. And also Marshall, Marshall from How I Met Your Mother, and Jason Segel, like he's still Marshall me, but yeah, like Sting comes back, he helps Darby make John Moxley quit in the main event of this pay-per-view. I'm sure that was going to be the end of All In originally, but Darby wins in the main event. And then he's just continuing on, taking on the Death Riders. He loses the pack at the next pay-per-view. I can see you're frustrated where you're coming from there. It's like, okay, you beat John Moxley. You made John Moxley say I quit, like John Cena quit. And
well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but
maybe John Moxley let go, I should say.
more so, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how I'd analogy it as well.
But then John Moxley became more over because he was quitting so much, and then he decided not to quit, and he won the Continental Championship, the Continental Classic at the last pay-per-view of the year, World's End. John Moxley feels more over than Darby right now, and Darby won the feud. And I think I see where you're coming from. Like, you already did this. Why aren't you a main eventer right now? Why aren't you being presented as a main eventer? And it right now,
I think
for
it's
me,
tough.
yeah, like one last point. We watched this in the prime of our childhood. Rey Mysterio is the world heavyweight champion WWE in 2006, and I had fun watching that at the time. But looking back, because Rey Mysterio is a similar size to Darby Allin, they're probably both 5'2", and Rey Mysterio is the world champion. He didn't look like he wasn't beating people, if you know what I mean. He was winning sporting contests by the skin of his teeth and then getting beaten and beaten and beaten in between. And right now with Darby, it's like he's not winning these matches. Like he's not making John Moxley say I quit. It's like he's winning sporting contests. And then he's getting beaten between all his wins. And I think it makes him look not as legit as a championship contender, even though he's really good.
It's really funny actually that you mentioned Rey Mysterio there, because so getting back to the Everest stuff, I do think it's really cool to have a dream. Don't get me wrong. I think anytime anybody has a dream, you should go for it. There's one life. I mean, we're sitting here talking about wrestling because we thought, I think it's very important to have a dream. And I think it's really cool that Darby Allin wanted to climb Mount Everest. I think it's even cooler that he did it. But in a lot of ways, it did hurt his momentum. And it's hard to, I think it's really hard for a company to build around someone who, the reason I said it was funny you mentioned Rey Mysterio was because I remember joking with a couple buddies at the time, when the news that Alan would be taking a leave of absence for a bit to do it. I remember I was joking, like, could you imagine if in 2004 Rey Mysterio told Vince, "I'm going to climb Mount Everest," and just like the backlash that would have got. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's really cool that Tony's the kind of guy that can be like, yeah, fuck yeah, go for it, man. I think it's really cool to have that in the boss. Now, that being said, I can also then see if he's like, I don't know about a world title, man. It's hard to build around a guy like that where how do you, I won't say trust the wrong word, but let's say you put all your eggs in this basket and you go, okay, Darby, I want you to run with it. You're going to be our dude. And then what if he gets another dream at any point, right? And not that I'm saying he would, but just I think it's hard to kind of bank on, and you should never put all your eggs in one basket. I think, early 2000s WWE is a great point for that when all their stars left. But that being said, I can kind of see why in a lot of ways like Alan's sort of in the position that he's in right now because of that. Again, it's awesome that he did it, and I'm really glad he was able to do it. I love that we live in a world now, especially in wrestling, where you can chase down whatever dream you want. That's awesome. But I think that is part of the reason why he's never quite broken through to that next level.
Yep. So that'll be interesting to watch. One more big AW note as another fruit flies in my vision. I took away my trash. Why am I getting fruit flies? I have no fruit here. But anyways,
I don't eat fruit. What are you kidding?
I eat fruit. I just took my trash out, my bananas, and maybe I have a bowl that had some frozen mangoes in it. Maybe that's why. And I had my protein shake. Anyways, I work out. Did I ever tell you I have protein shakes? I work out. Did I ever tell you that?
Well, there you go. There you go.
I'm embarrassed to talk about even.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah. So one big note. We talked about last week and talked about trying to make new stars. And this guy's not a new star per se in wrestling, but for the AEW audience, Tommaso Ciampa, fresh from WWE, defeats Mark Briscoe on his first night and becomes the AEW and TNT champion last week on Collision in a great match. He is effectively one of the mid-card champions, was treated like a star. He's celebrating backstage with his wife and his daughter, comes across like a total babyface. You're kind of seeing he's a little bit of a lunatic, but in a good way. And I was trying to stay spoiler free from tonight's episode of Collision, but he's going to be defending that championship against Kyle Fletcher on Wednesday for Dynamite. I'm like, it'll be a great match. Yeah. And hopefully he wins and continues winning, and Kyle Fletcher could move on to the main event scene after being TNT champion. But I don't know, we were talking about before, like when something's hot, just go with it. I guess your reaction to Ciampa winning the championship on his first night and maybe where he's going to go from here.
Yeah, I know. And like, even we were kind of getting there with Andrade. I know the fear is guys come in and they win the belts right away. I didn't feel that with Tommaso. I don't know. It felt different. It felt needed. And, I like Briscoe, but I don't know. I was really for this move. I think it's the best thing they could have done. And I think there's a lot more you can do with a guy like Ciampa as TNT champion. And not I don't want to just compare to WWE, but it is crazy to think that outside of NXT, like he had never held a singles title. Like once he made it to the main roster, like that was his first outside of the NXT championship. Like I don't even know if were they tag champs, him and Gargano? I can't even.
They were tag team champions at some point.
Okay.
WWE just thinks so little of its tag team division and featuring them on big shows. You could just forget about it. But they were tag team champions, I think, at least once with like they
had that Rumble match with the guns. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
but then regardless, this is his first, mid card title.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Which is great, and I think the reason it feels different to me, I think, not sure if you feel this way, but with old WWE stars coming into AEW and winning early, or maybe vice versa, I think it depends on the mindset. And I didn't elaborate on this during my Royal Rumble notes earlier in the show, but how I took satisfaction seeing Rusev get eliminated quickly or Rey Fenix not do too well and Aleister Black not in it. It's all about the mindset. Like Rusev gets fired by WWE during the pandemic. He goes to AEW. Do you know how many times he lost in AEW
I'm gonna. Was it? Yeah, it was twice. Yeah.
Twice. He got pinned once when he lost the TNT Championship to Sammy Guevara. And even though it's wrestling, like, I think wins and losses should matter, and I understand like the WWE fans' mind at times will think, okay, if they're gonna lose clean and there's no shenanigans, then clearly they're not a star. So I understand wanting to protect yourself in a bit, but you need to lose to be able to advance stories. And clearly, Rusev did not want to lose in AEW. Same situation with Malachi Black, now Aleister Black in WWE. And, when Triple H became the head of creative in 2022, and suddenly there were some AEW folks who wanted to, may have been with WWE before, who wanted to get out of their contracts and go back to WWE and create like a mass exodus. The two biggest perpetrators were, in my opinion, Rusev and Aleister Black. And you don't want folks who think there are two who thinks they're above AEW. And like CM Punk, for example, even though he did do some business, thought he was above AEW and that he was pulling them by himself essentially to be relevant. And you kind of see that times too with the Hurt Business, Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, and MVP at times. And with Tommaso Ciampa and Andrade here, Andrade, he did business in AEW's first go around, but he wanted to get out of his contract at the time. But now he went to WWE again, and now he knows, kind of as you mentioned, he knows this is probably his last chance, and he knows that probably this is his home. He's locking in. And Ciampa comes in. He voluntarily left WWE. He didn't renew his contract. So he goes to AEW, and he's appearing to lock in. Ricochet last year with Ricochet. So Ricochet was like the superstar on the independent scene in Japan, becomes a star in NXT, gets the main roster, doesn't work. He's said now that he's been wanting to get out of his contract with WWE for ages before it eventually expired. He goes to AEW, he voluntarily leaves, and he's locking in. And so I think it's okay in a sense where if you're willing to do business, if you don't feel like just because you were in WWE that you're not forever above everyone else, or you view AEW as the minor leagues, like if you don't have those folks in, it's good. If you have folks that appreciate that this is another place where I can make more money, and because AEW is doing well, WWE is going to increase their pay as well. This is a healthy major pro wrestling company. If you have those mindsets in and they want to work hard, I think it'll go really well. And I think this should continue to do well. Tommaso Ciampa, hopefully, and hopefully let Mark Briscoe and Kyle Fletcher move up the card as well.
I will argue kind of on that point because I did agree with most of that. I will argue more so for the Punk stuff. I never really looked at him as thinking he was too good for AEW. I always kind of just looked at him as like not gelling well with Tony Khan in that sense of like, I think he liked a lot of, maybe outside of the Bucks, but I think he liked a lot of the guys there. It was just management where once he was there, he was kind of like, which is interesting because for so many years he complained about a guy like Vince who was very domineering, very, obviously never going to let him really break through to be that guy that Triple H now has let him be. But I don't know. I always kind of took that more as like he got to AEW and he was like, oh, this is kind of weird management wise. And I mean, he's changed a lot in his old age too, even with, like for somebody who was so for the boys for the longest time. And then recently said like, well, now there's no reason to fight for the main event because we're all getting paid the same. Who cares where you are on the card? And so a lot of that kind of, maybe it changes with his old age, but
we need a CM Punk
I don't know.
episode one of these days.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to it. But yep. But yeah, my point being I always kind of took it more as like beef with TK versus, and AW sucks because let's be honest, when he came back, he could have gone wherever he wanted. He clearly didn't want to be in WWE and then only came back to WWE because he burned his bridge.
I don't think Vince wanted him. I think that was a big one too, because I remember Fox, what was it? I think Fox was pushing for Punk to be on WWE, but then Vince didn't want to when he was making the rounds, I guess, in 2021, and then maybe earlier in 2019 when he did the show with Fox Sports. But we'll be here for another 4 hours if we just talk solely on CM Punk, the man, the myth, the legend. But yeah, so AEW is looking pretty good.
I saw the pain in your face when you had to say legend there too.
He's I
I'm the
hate the
legend.
man. I hate the man with all my heart, but he is still an excellent professional wrestler. I got to give him his flowers. I was
Hate's
actually
a
looking
strong
back.
word, buddy.
I have a very large amount of disrespect, but I was looking back at the video because you mentioned we were at Survivor Series War Games in Vancouver in 24. I booed CM Punk during his entrance. I was one of the few. I looked at the video of his entrance and I realized I should have booed him even more. That's how I still feel about the man, as much as I admire him as I admire his work rate. That's how I feel about the man. But before going on, we're gonna get to our take our look at the independent scene in BC. I want to take a look at this upcoming card because you never know how life can move fast in wrestling. This almost feels like this will be the lead when we join you next time. This Grand Slam Australia show looks stacked. So as mentioned, we got Hangman Adam Page against Andrade El Idolo. The winner will challenge the AEW World Champion, the Men's World Champion, at Revolution. MJF is defending the AEW Men's World Championship against Brody King. Other notable matches: John Moxley, the Continental Champions, defending against Konosuke Takeshita. That should be a banner as the Death Riders, Don Callis family storyline continues. Orange Cassidy teaming up with Timeless Tony Storm, Australia's own, to take on Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir in a mixed tornado tag team match. But whoever takes the pin is going to get shaved bald. Ace, very quick. Orange Cassidy, Tony Storm, Wheeler Yuta, Marina Shafir. Who do you want to see shaved bald?
Character wise, I feel like Tony Storm would be fun. I feel like they'll probably go either Wheeler or OC. I hope it's not OC. I feel like Wheeler's got that kind of hair that could, it could be a big like, oh my God, it's gone.
It would be
So I think it'll probably be Wheeler.
I think it will too. He's got the ugliest dog hair that covers his eyes.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's so ugly. It's good. I think it just kind of makes his character more. So I'm conflicted.
Yeah.
Maybe Marina Shafir. Could you imagine like how scary a bald Marina Shafir would look coming at you?
Yeah, that's yeah. No, it's funny. I know that I don't think they'll go there. I know they've teased it with Tony. I think that would be great. But yeah, I think it'll probably be Wheeler.
I think there'll be a lot of good heat with this. I can't wait for that. And then the final match.
Whatever happens.
Oh, sorry, good. Yeah.
No, I just say whatever happens.
Whatever happens. Okay. I don't think. Yeah. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, the final match. The final match on that Grand Slam show. AEW Women's World Tag Team Championships. The Babes of Wrath. Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron, fellow Australian star, defending against Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. Looking like a good show, and there might still be another thing announced. Maybe Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland takes place then and there. Maybe that's saved for Revolution because it seems like that path is going, but already looks like a pretty stacked show. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a fun one.
We'll have a path to Revolution for sure. We'll know if Brody King's successful. Yeah. We'll know if Andrade or the Hangman successful. Maybe where the story involving all the challengers coming after MJF will go. So definitely be a noble one. We'll have to watch that for sure before recording the next episode. Any other AEW notes you want to touch on very quick before we get to our independent segment, Ace?
Yeah, I think that was kind of. I think we touched on everything I'd want to talk about. Just fuck Ice. Yeah, that's kind of the last thing I want to. I thought that was really cool, and
fuck Ice.
I'm glad
AI.
to see that. There you go. I'm glad to see that once again that freedom of speech involves everyone and not just the people that you want to have freedom of speech. So I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. All right. So independents are going crazy right now, man. Here we go.
They are.
And then if you're like me living in beautiful Kamloops, the tournament capital, we have our new show. You're asking me like how many times does Thrash Wrestling come to Kamloops? We have our answer now. Saturday, March 14th, Thrash Wrestling Grand Machismos taking place at Moccasin Square Gardens on the Kamloops Reserve. Should be an incredible time. Saturday, March 14th, 7 p.m. Go there, have a great time. Get a bucket of popcorn from Jason Fooey at the concession stand. There's around 200 or 250 fans. When I went there last month, it was a rocking atmosphere. Should be another good show. Elsewhere in the interior, Thrash Wrestling is going to be at the Rutland Centennial Hall in Kelowna on Friday, February 13th at 7 p.m., featuring former WWE star Chris Masters, the masterpiece. Still looks as good as ever. Holy smokes.
You still have the long hair too. I haven't seen him in a bit.
He's got the long hair. He's still got the long hair, though.
Okay, there you go. There you
He doesn't have, it's not like his hair is thinning either. I mean, the guy just has a chiseled body and hair that's not balding.
My God, he's got to be like, what, 44, 45 now? Jesus.
Somewhere now. And
Good for him.
still doing it. I'm sure he's making decent money, but for the love of the game, you love to see it.
Okay.
Yep. And then Friday, February 20th, Thrash Wrestling Ravenous at the Luso Canadian Multicultural Society in Penticton. That's Friday, February 20th at 7 p.m. in Penticton. Then Saturday, February 21st at 7 p.m., White Hot Winter at the Schubert Center in Vernon, BC. That's what's happening in the world of thrash. Going to your neck of the woods now, Ace, on Vancouver Island. VIPW, Vancouver Island Pro Wrestling, Friday, March 27th, 6:30 p.m. in Langford at the Langford Legion. And going further to that, the next time they'll be in Nanaimo, Saturday, March 28th, 6:30 p.m. from the Centennial Building in Nanaimo. Low stock, they say on the VIPW website. Ace, you gotta secure your tickets there. I think is that your birthday or close to it, right?
That day before, 29th. So it is my birthday weekend.
Okay. What a way to rein in the birthday weekend, then checking out VIPW.
Well, it was tough. We were trying to figure out if we were going to do that. Brooke and I were looking at a couple different things, if we were going away or not. They're hosting the Dirt Cup in, I think actually the same night that would be. And they had asked me about singing the anthem there. So there's a couple things going on. I don't know what I'm either watching wrestling, hockey, or we're off at some nice resort and getting a massage, but we'll figure it out hopefully soon. We'll iron those plans out. And
everybody wants a piece of Ace's ass on a special day and a special weekend. Love to see it. And then going forward, Saturday, April 25th, VIPW is at the Meller Hall, the Cow X grounds in Duncan, Saturday, April 25th at 6:30 p.m. And then the biggest show of the year, VIPW WrestleFest 3, a tables, ladders, and chairs match in the main event. That's taking place at the Frank Crane Arena, Friday, June 19th, 6:30 p.m. Busy times in VIPW. I can't wait. There's a little bit of a gap, though, in between from now until that next show in March 27th. That's a pretty sizable gap on the VIPW scene. I think maybe we need to get a guest on to fill that time until then, you know?
Yeah, there's a few weeks. It's cool though, because I know a lot of times, I think it's every few months. It is interesting you say the bit on low stock too, because they're like I can't remember if I mentioned it last week, but they're like massive in Nanaimo now. Where like these tickets are going, there's front row, there's no way you're getting there unless you do it right away, second they drop. So it's really cool to see. Which I'm not 100% sure if they're selling out quite as quick at either the Duncan shows or the Port shows or I think it's Langford technically in Vic.
Langford Legion coming up.
But yeah, it's super hot here in Nanaimo. And I know it's their home base too, but it's pretty sick to see.
Hell yeah, brother. And it's not just Nanaimo or Kamloops or the Okanagan or Vancouver Island getting these shows as well. Taking a look at the Lower Mainland, Saturday, February 21st, 8 p.m. from the Wise in Vancouver, Nation Extreme Wrestling, Pay Your Dues. That's Saturday, February 21st. If you're on the mainland, sticking in the mainland, we've got All-Star Wrestling, Love is a Pile Driver, taking place at the Abbotsford Arts Center. That's 1 week from now, Saturday, February 14th. At 7:30 p.m., former WWE star Eugene's going to be appearing for meet and greet. 6:30 p.m., doors at 6:45, bell time at 7:30. That's Valentine's Day at the Abbotsford Arts Center. Meeting Eugene, would that be your first date, Valentine's date for Brooke? Would that be the first one you picked?
I think we had sushi at a movie plan, but Nick Dinsmore, that's once in a lifetime. That's actually pretty cool. You said Abbotsford for that show?
Abbotsford, the Abbotsford Art Center to be specific. So yeah, that'll take place Valentine's Day. So real grabs.
Didn't see he's still working too. Right on.
Yeah, love to see that. And All-Star Wrestling continues on March 7th in Surrey at the Alice McKay Building. Doors open at 6:45. So All-Star Wrestling staying busy. All-Star Wrestling still continuing to stay busy, going back to the Abbotsford Arts Center on April 4th for Heavy Mania 2. Doors open at 6:45. And if we're ever in the Lower Mainland, I think we need to give these guys a check out. I heard nothing but great things. Boom Pro Wrestling in Vancouver apparently has the wildest characters, is a really good atmosphere. They're next. They got some of these shows are already sold out. So these are the shows that are not sold out. Friday, February 27th from 8 to 10:30 p.m. at the Commercial Drive Legion, the third floor in Vancouver. They're following up with Kids League Night 6, Saturday, March 7th from 8 to 10:30 p.m. at St. James Community Square in Vancouver. They'll return to the Commercial Drive Legion, third floor, on Friday, March 27th from 8 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. for Boom Pro Wrestling Keys to the City. They'll have another show the night afterwards, I should say. It's still at the Commercial Drive Legion, third floor, Saturday, March 28th, 8 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., the Coco Harriet Invitational for 2026. And for the folks who aren't Lower Mainland, in the interior, or Vancouver Island, we got something for you. Boom is coming to Powell River on Saturday, April 4th, 8 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. at the Dwight Hall in Powell River. If you ever want to have an excuse to go to the Sunshine Coast, Boom Pro Wrestling, Powell River on Saturday the 4th there. Should be a pretty good show. And then going all the way up to Northern BC as we should finish. Got a trio of shows in March. Friday, March 13th, 5:45 p.m. at the Prince George Civic Center. That'll be followed up the next night still at the Prince George Civic Center, Saturday, March 14th at 5:45 p.m. And finishing up that weekend, Sunday, March 15th, 6:30 p.m. from the Quesnel and District Seniors Society in Quesnel, BC in the Caribou. And Big West Wrestling as well. Big West Wrestling's debuting in Surrey. Well, they had their debut while we recorded, I suppose. Their next show, though, Saturday, May 16th, looking way down the line. Saturday, May 16th at 6:30 p.m. at the Sullivan's Community Association in Surrey. Ace, how the hell are we keeping up with all these independents? There's so much going on in this province, man.
I'm gonna say, I'm surprised to hear there wasn't more around. Maybe, there's still time to book them, but I'm surprised there weren't more around the Dynasty weekend. Because I was gonna say, if we're there that weekend, Friday, Saturday night, I'd love to go check out one of those. If there's something in like Surrey or.
Yeah, I remember we were leaving Survivor Series a little over a year ago. Apparently, a lot of the folks who were with us with VIPW, they went to Boom Pro Wrestling because they were performing that night after Survivor Series was finished. So,
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something? If there's a show, we'll have our fix of wrestling on Saturday, April 12th from Rogers Arena, AEW Dynasty, the first AEW pay-per-view event in Vancouver, where I think my guy Kenny Omega is going to challenge MJF for that world championship. But we'll see. But if there's other stuff going on that weekend, we'll be definitely sure to highlight it. And probably want to check it out too, because I don't know. We're kind of blessed that we have a lot of options for wrestling all across this province.
I'll leave that in your hands to break the news to Brooke that we're not catching the early boat, but we're going to another pro wrestling show after Dynasty. That's on you. You're buying hot dogs.
I'll buy the hot dogs, but I feel like in some cases Brooke is dragging you to these shows more than vice versa. It's starting to feel like now.
Sometimes as I mature and get a little older, sometimes it's harder getting out of the house. So it's good. It's good for me. It's good for me.
Mm-hmm. As we mature, the relationship matures with us. And
exactly.
Stick on the independent news, we forgot to mention previously, but wanted to take some time here. The recent retirement. We've had a bunch of high-profile retirements recently. John Cena with WWE, Hiroshi Tanahashi with New Japan Pro Wrestling, but Canadian independent legend, Mr. Beefy Goodness himself, Vance Nevada, retired recently with his last show at Primetime Wrestling in Prince George. I didn't realize just how accomplished he was. 1,843 matches over a career spanning from 1993 to 2026. Holy smokes. Was recently inducted into the VIPW Hall of Fame. You were able to go to that show. I don't know if you
was there. I was
going to see the match, but the ceremony, how was it being able to see that and seeing him get inducted into the VIPW Hall of Fame, Vance Nevada, right before his retirement?
It's pretty cool. Yeah. So I was pretty unfamiliar with him myself. And I was, like you said, I was pretty surprised, looking him up afterwards. And yeah, like that dude is and a pretty cool career. It's cool to see.
It is.
And the longevity of it too, I think speaks to, to be able to work in conditions where, you're never necessarily making a whole lot of money and still chase that dream down your entire career. That's such a cool legacy.
Yeah, as he
That
mentioned,
throughout it all, you were able to power through and still do the thing you love. That's awesome.
yeah, as he mentioned that, because one thing, looking through his accomplishments, and the one thing that stood out to me, so he has been through the Canadian Death Tour 4 times. And for those who don't know, the Canadian Death Tour is a 2-week tour in the middle of winter, early February, around that time, over 2 weeks, going to multiple remote rural communities like in northern Manitoba. It is a grind. You're driving on icy roads. You're staying in communities without hotels. You're going to gymnasium to gymnasium. You're setting up the ring. You're doing your show. You're unpacking. You're sleeping in the gym in northern Manitoba in early February in a sleeping bag. And you're just grinding and grinding. And there's actually a cool documentary I didn't realize was out on CBC Gem called, I think it's called Death Tour. Chris Jericho is an executive producer on it. And
Cool.
so that's out and about now. But yeah, just it's sometimes called like I forget the exact phrase it's called, but it's basically your entry to wrestling. Like if you want to make in this business, you do the Canadian Death Tour, and it is a grind. Like multiple Canadian wrestling legends have gone through it. Kenny Omega, Adam Copeland, the former Edge, I believe Christian Cage as well. Even though he's not Canadian, I think he's Detroit, Michigan, but Rhino went through it. And this
I
guy,
thought you were gonna say Christian wasn't Canadian. I was gonna say, yeah.
oh no.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, but Vance Nevada. So doing this tour 1 time is a grind that kind of changes you. This guy did it 4 times. 4. I can't imagine. Like I'm sure I need to watch this documentary at some point. I had a friend in Edmonton. His buddy is an independent wrestler. His name's Jake Woods. He did the Canadian Death Tour, and he's telling me the story about it briefly. Just going on a sleeping bag. You're in the gym. You're setting up, and then you're tearing down. You're doing your match. He mentioned he had hurt his shoulder on a spot during the early part of the tour. And then he spent like the next day just stretching out his shoulder, just trying to make sure it was as workable as possible. And I forget the exact spot. If he listens to this, please correct me. I think he's taking like an inverted DDT or something. And the way he said it, he basically had to sell it like he was taking a neck breaker because he said, I just couldn't land on my shoulder. It was hurting that bad. But because you're up north, where groceries are more expensive too, and you have such a lack of resources, you just barrel on through to put on a show. So Vance Nevada doing that 4 times just blew my mind. I could not even imagine. I've been those prairie winters. I could not imagine.
Oh yeah, dude. He's the one I came, for those who don't know, when you were living in Melfort, Saskatchewan, pretty rural up north. And I came, I think, in like -20 for a week, and it was not the move. I couldn't imagine also driving myself from town to town, sleeping in the car. Yeah, it's kudos to those guys because that is a tough life.
Unbelievable. And so other highlights for Vance Nevada as well. I think he was recently inducted or about to be inducted into the Can-Am Wrestling Hall of Fame. He held the NWA Canadian Heavyweight Championship at one time. He reached number 224 in the PWI, the Pro Wrestling Illustrated 500 best singles wrestlers for 2005. He was able to crack that up, just how much good talents in the world. He was able to reach that point. The VIPW Hall of Fame as well, as we mentioned, Primetime Wrestling Hall of Fame, as well as he retired in Prince George. This one was neat to me, the Cauliflower Alley Club. So the Cauliflower Alley Club, for those who don't know, it's like the one registered charity in pro wrestling. Basically, the goal is for wrestlers who have fallen on hard times, they raise funds and they help wrestlers who need a helping hand and maybe low on finances. They always do a gala each year, not a gala, I should say, but like a convention each year in Las Vegas. It's like their main fundraiser, and they hand out awards, like an awards gala. Vance Nevada won the James Melby Historian Award in 2010. And basically that's given to like a journalist who has made their contributions in wrestling. And Vance Nevada, honored by the Cauliflower Alley Club, given the James Melby Historian Award in 2010. So he's probably, well, most definitely more of a legit wrestling journalist than we are. He got honored for it.
Oh,
So
definitely.
he's doing
I
it
was gonna say.
in the ring and behind the notebook too. It's incredible.
Right on.
Yeah.
No,
So
that's really cool.
absolutely. So long career. Forgot to mention previously, but congratulations, Vance Nevada. Incredible 33-year career. Ideally left the industry better than he left the industry better than when he came into it. Took on some of the best Canadian wrestlers over the course of his 33-year career, helped folks on their journeys to other things as well, too. So congrats, Vance Nevada. That's quite the accomplishment. We got to, I guess that's the thing, too. We were kind of talking about the whole, like, if it's not in WWE, it doesn't matter, how some folks have that mindset. Even if it's not just like in front of the TV most times, too. Even if you're just working across the world on all these continents and countries and just doing it for the folks, even as isolated as like the rural northern Manitoba communities, it does matter elsewhere too. So it's always nice to honor good.
And I'm gonna say this without trying to knock wrestlers in WWE or in the bigger leagues. You know, like a guy like Nevada doing this through times where I guarantee you it wasn't as, how do I word this? Doing it during times of turmoil where, it probably wasn't as easy in, 2001 to make ends meet to. I think that's so much more impressive than a guy who's been working in WWE for 20 years, let's say. Um, Without that financial security of everything's going to be okay no matter what happens. And I think so many guys could have and probably have just given up and, finally grown up and got that real job that their parents always told them to do. I think it's cool to beat the drum for your entire career and say, no, I'm going to do this. And it sounds like he got to do it his entire professional wrestling career, So I think that's fucking awesome. And I congratulate him for that. That's really cool.
Hell yeah, Vance Nevada, and hell yeah to wrestling from the independents in BC to the major league. Well, I shouldn't say major leagues, but like, the most exposed leagues like AW and WWE. I mean, I don't know. We love to see, especially folks who are just able to grind and just kind of carve out a career for themselves and help folks along the way too. So good stuff all around. Congrats, Vance Nevada. I think that pretty much puts a bow on this week's. I mean, we never quite got to emergency podcast territory, but a jam-packed
It was close.
week
It was pretty
in
close.
pro wrestling. It was close. Maybe there will. I'll say Beetlejuice to see if it will happen. But yep, this should drop right before Super Bowl Sunday. Whether you want to put a bow on your weekend,
Go Hawks.
join us. Go Hawks. See. Hey, so you're supposed to say Hawks.
Oh, so I see what you were. Yeah, that's on me. At first, it almost sounded like you were doing a Lyra for a second there too.
Ooh. Yep. No,
Yeah.
we'll always support Lyra too. Or whatever that bird thing is. Yep. But so go Hawks. This will drop before, and then we'll be back again next week as well. I think we'll probably get to regularly scheduled programming, having this record on the Sunday. Next Sunday work good for you, Ace?
I believe so. I think I'm here. So it's
All right. Well, that was Cup Chuck Wrestling 2, Electric Boogaloo. It'll be an exciting week of wrestling again. AW Australia Grand Slam on Saturday the 14th for those who need Valentine's Day plans.
There you go.
And then a pair of Elimination Chamber qualifiers on the men's and women's side in WWE as well this week. Should be fun to follow. In the meantime, I'm Aaron Schultz. He's Corey Ace Trelaw, I should say. And this is Cup Check Wrestling, where the big boys play with each other.